Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Naruto, Orochimaru Disciple, awakened extraordinary enlightenment talent at first. Chapter 41. Opposite. Obito looked at Ishihara with a serious expression. He had not expected the opponent's way of breaking the situation, and Ishihara's strength was somewhat beyond his expectations. But you dare to disperse your chakra in a fight with me, you are really courting death. No matter what your purpose is, I will not let you achieve it. Yakura continued to attack, including Ishihara's body and his shadow clone. Obito sneered after watching Ishihara perform his shadow clone, but he felt a little uneasy. He already knew how terrifying Ishihara's comprehension was. Although he did not think that Ishihara could develop new secret techniques in this short time on the battlefield. But he did not dare to gamble. He did not dare to leave any possibility for Ishihara. Leave it to me. Yakura's voice came from the three-tailed body. Then the three-tailed aimed at the body of Ishihara on the opposite side and began to condense the tailed beast ball. Tailed beast ball. On the opposite side, Ishihara's eyes flickered. Buy-in. Buzz. In an instant, the vision turned black and white. The flow of chakra in the three-tailed body became extremely clear. All the details of the tailed beast chakra condensed in the air were also extremely clear. All kinds of information and data about the tailed beast jade that I had seen in my previous life also emerged in my mind. The light of inspiration began to collide in my mind. You have insight into the principle of the tailed beast jade and created the secret technique tailed beast jade. Tailed beast jade. A chakra ball condensed with one's own chakra can achieve the same effect as the tailed beast jade. A lot of information instantly flooded into my mind. A smile appeared on Ishihara's face, and he sneered at Obito opposite him. Remember to learn from your lesson next time, Obito. It is a very dangerous thing to perform ninjutsu in front of me. Senjutsu tailed beast jade. Buzz. A large amount of chakra and natural energy began to condense towards his mouth. How is this possible? Obito looked at Ishihara in horror, clenched his fists, and his knuckles were clenched white, feeling unbelievable. This is the tailed beast jade. And he was sure that Ishihara had never seen it before, and today was the first time he saw it. But, after just a glance, the other party actually learned it. The bone-chilling chill attacked the back of his head from his back, and Obito got goosebumps all over his body, and his hair stood up. He truly felt the fear from Ishihara. He stared at the tailed beast ball in Ishihara's mouth, gritted his teeth and whispered to himself. It's impossible to succeed. No one can do it, and even if it's just similar in appearance, the effect can't reach the level of tailed beast ball. But the next moment, asshole, Yakura was furious when he saw this scene, and spit out the tailed beast ball in his mouth without hesitation. Boom, the terrifying chakra ball shot out instantly. At the same time, Ishihara on the opposite side also activated the tailed beast ball. Whoosh, a chakra ball slightly larger than a fist flew out like lightning. Then, in Obito's nervous eyes, it hit Yagura's tailed beast ball hard. Even if there is a collision, such a small tailed beast ball will be knocked away. Obito secretly expected it in his heart. Bang! The collision happened, and a dull collision sound was heard. One was a huge tailed beast ball that had become more than 1 meter in diameter, and the other was only the size of 2 adult fists. Then, in Obito's unbelievable eyes, the small-tailed beast ball hit the bottom of the large-tailed beast ball. The powerful force instantly made the large-tailed beast ball fly diagonally into the air, while the small-tailed beast ball flew diagonally towards the direction of Obito below. Obito's face changed drastically in shock. He was not afraid of the tailed beast ball's attack, but he was shocked that Ishihara's tailed beast ball was real. This is incredible. He learned the tailed beast ball after just one look. This guy must die. Obito's face has become extremely ugly. It turns out that Zetsu's information is not exaggerated, but too modest. Ishihara's comprehension is far more terrible than he imagined. This is a huge threat to his Moon-Eye plan. He must be killed now and cannot be given any time to grow. A hint of killing flashed in Obito's eyes. Yakura, cooperate with me next, I will also take action. I know. Yakura began to condense the tailed beast ball again in his mouth, spewing it out, and colliding with the returning tailed beast ball. Boom! The two tailed beast balls exploded in the air, setting off a violent gust of wind. Opposite. Sure enough, the power is still not strong enough. Ishihara sighed when he saw the result of the tailed beast ball collision. After all, although his body has been transformed to a certain degree of immortality and his body energy has been greatly improved, his chakra volume is still not comparable to that of the tailed beast. But this is enough. Ishihara let out a breath. His goal was just to stop the three-tailed beast ball. In this way, the shadow clone would have time to act. Let me play with you next. Ishihara instantly entered the lightning body state, and the whole person burst out like lightning. Whoosh! A blue line quickly approached the three-tailed in the raging shock wave. In his Byakugan vision, he had already seen Obito's identity. He actually disguised himself as an Anbu. Ishihara sneered. But Obito didn't know how dazzling his body and chakra transplanted with the cells of the first generation of Hokage were in the Byakugan's vision. When he approached the three-tailed beast, he began to quickly seal his hands. You will also taste the taste of being buried underground. Earth escape. Earth flow cut. Boom. The ground where the three-tailed beast and Obito were located shook wildly, and then the ground cracked and rolled upwards, and a huge crack appeared in the original place. The huge body of the three-tailed beast had no time to move, and it smashed directly into the depths of the crack. Obito quickly moved, standing on the high ground and looking at Ishihara in doubt. This guy found me. He didn't understand the reason, but he knew what to do. Since it has been exposed, there is no need to hide it. Obito stared at Ishihara coldly, but did not act rashly. The extreme speed of entering the lightning body state also made him quite afraid. Shadow caress. Yagura's angry voice sounded from the crack underground. The body of the three-tailed beast curled up like a hedgehog, and then spun rapidly, rushing out of the deep pit like a fallen car tire. In midair, Yagura said coldly, "Little devil, I'm going to kill you." Swish! A blue figure suddenly appeared in front of the three-tailed beast, and the three-tailed beast's pupils shrank suddenly. So fast. Ishihara suddenly retracted his fist and clenched it at his waist. A large amount of chakra and natural energy wrapped around his fist, and then swung it out. Not just fast. Senjutsu super strength. A punch hit the hard tortoise shell of the three-tailed beast fiercely. Bang! A loud noise. The surging air circle bloomed in the air. The huge body of the three-tailed beast flew backwards in an instant. This guy is so powerful, you must not be hit by him head-on. Obito frowned. The three-tailed beast is not only huge in size, but also the heaviest among all the tailed beasts, but was actually blown away by a punch. This kind of power is a bit unbelievable. Next, it's your turn, you idiot. In the air, Ishihara, who was slowly descending, looked down at Obito and said coldly. Arrogant. Obito's face was a little ugly, and murderous intent surged in his heart. He was very afraid of Ishihara's talent and understanding. So he knew that only before Ishihara knew his ability, he could still kill with one blow. Once his ability was exposed to Ishihara, he didn't know what the consequences would be. But he also knew very well that Ishihara must be killed. And he must be killed now. The sooner the better. Obito said nothing, took out a kunai, and rushed directly to Ishihara, who had just landed with cold eyes. Ishihara's eyes flickered slightly, and he had guessed what Obito was thinking. Immediately sneered, too slow. Then he stomped his feet hard. Boom! The ground exploded. The powerful reaction force instantly made him shoot out and came to Obito's front. His body stagnated, staring at Obito with cold eyes. Die! He punched out. Senjutsu super strength. Boom! The extreme speed plus the extreme power. He directly punched out a layer of air circle in the air, exploding like a sound wave. The violent momentum made Obito's pupils shrink suddenly. He looked at Ishihara's confident eyes and sneered in his heart. It's really strong. Few people in the ninja world can match his strength and speed, but what's the use of a strong move if it can't hit the enemy? The next moment, swish, Ishihara's fist landed on Obito's body and penetrated directly. Immediately afterwards, Obito's figure passed through Ishihara's body directly, and then turned around and grabbed Ishihara's body, and was overjoyed. I won. As long as he grabbed Ishihara's body, he could send the other party into the Kamui space. At that time, he would definitely win. But the next moment. I told you, your speed is too slow. Ishihara's cold voice made Obito's heart jump suddenly. He looked at Ishihara, who had turned his head, and the playful eyes made him horrified. Not good. Does this guy know my ability? Is this a trap? Ishihara stared at Obito with cold eyes, and slashed at Obito left and right as fast as lightning. Puff! A broken arm flew up. It actually hit. Ishihara was a little surprised. You know, although Obito's Kamui is slow when absorbing people, it is very fast when it is hollowed. In the battle with the fourth Hokage, he was caught by this loophole and was directly hit hard. Relevant training must have been carried out after the war. So when Itachi and Sasuke were fighting, he used the identity of Afe to stop Naruto and others, and the speed of his body's hollowing was much faster. By the time of the Fourth War, the hollowing was almost instantaneous, and even the lightning kunai thrown by Kakashi could be easily avoided. That's why Ishihara used the fastest attack method to injure Obito instead of grabbing his arm. But his attack still passed through Obito's body after tearing Obito's arm. This made Ishihara feel a little regretful. Obito retreated quickly, looking at Ishihara with lingering fear, his heart still pounding. If he hadn't been cautious and just moved his arm outside, he might have been severely injured just now. Does this guy know the information about my technique in advance, or is he simply fast? Obito felt a little uneasy. Ishihara did not pursue him. He knew that Obito was still in a state of virtualization and said calmly, I didn't expect that the person who controlled Yagura turned out to be a guy from the Uchiha clan, and he also activated the Mangekyo Sharingan. If I guessed correctly, the move that escaped my attack just now was your pupil technique. He didn't want Obito to know that he knew his identity. Gaps in intelligence are also critical in combat. What's more, he wanted to study Kakashi's divine power, but he couldn't let Obito notice it. Obito felt relieved when he heard this. It seems that his information has not been leaked. But he didn't dare to be careless. He kept thinking about the scene where he almost hit Ishihara just now in his mind, and the more he thought about it, the more something was wrong. How did this guy sense the attack I had prepared in advance from behind? If I hadn't expected it, then this guy would have noticed it the moment I attacked, otherwise he wouldn't have had time to react even if he was very fast. He doesn't have white eyes, unless there are eyes behind his back. That's not right. Obito's heart skipped a beat and he looked at Ishihara in disbelief. If he remembered correctly, there was a Byakugan in Mist Ninja Village, and it was a complete Byakugan of the clan. And the owl who mastered the Byakugan seemed to have disappeared together with Terumi Mei, and neither one appeared again. Could it be that? Have you mastered the Byakugan? Ishihara raised his eyebrows. Very good, he would fill in the gaps in my mind, and he admitted directly, that's right. Hiss. Obito gasped. Although he had long known that Ishihara had mastered the Sharingan through some secret technique. But it is far less impactful than Ishihara's personal admission. This is not the blood inheritance boundary that relies on chakra fusion, but the real hereditary pupil technique. How is this possible? Obito felt incredible, but the facts were before him, and even if he didn't want to believe it, he couldn't change the facts. Trouble. Obito's heart was extremely heavy. Originally, he thought that the power to defeat Ishihara was his divine power. But the extreme speed Ishihara showed was already troublesome enough, and now coupled with Byakugan's vision, he couldn't make a sneak attack at all. Divine power can't do much at all. His plan failed. If it doesn't work, then let Nagato take action. Obito took a deep breath. The more evil Ishihara behaves, the more determined he is in his determination to kill Ishihara. Obito retreated again, trying to put enough distance between him and leave time for him to fade away. But what he didn't expect was that Ishihara didn't move, but looked at him quietly. Does this guy want to study divine power? Asshole. Obito's heart was awe-inspiring, and his teeth chattered. The pupil technique that he is proud of has become the research target of others. With Obito's pride, his heart was already filled with rage. Wood release. Chaos of hell. Obito's hands materialized, and then a large number of wood escapes emerged from the ground. The thorny saplings instantly swelled and spiraled into large trees, rising into the sky. The thorn forest surrounded the stone plain. Immediately afterwards, these woods began to circle, entangle, and strangle Shiuan from all directions. Like countless steel cables forming a wall, the arrows shot out from all directions towards a central point. Whoosh! The harsh sound that broke through the air made Ishihara raise his eyebrows slightly and his expression became serious. With this intensity of wood release, even his lightning flash body couldn't rush out at once. Just when he was about to take action, there was a loud shout in the distance. Tailed Beast Jade, Sanwei, who was running madly, launched an attack. A piece of Tailed Beast Jade hit his location like a falling pop. Now, Xiuan was surrounded by countless wooden escapes, as if he had fallen into a large chimney. A Tailed Beast Jade is falling from the sky. What would you do? Obito looked solemn. Nowadays, he does not have a very powerful single-target ninjutsu, and the only divine power he can use is also limited. So we can only think of ways to limit Ishihara's speed, and then use Tailed Beast Jade to bomb at close range. I underestimated Obito before. It's really not that simple for this guy to become a villain boss. Ishihara took a deep breath, feeling a little stressed. But just when he forced a breakthrough, he suddenly looked startled and showed joy. The shadow clone succeeded. Go back in time a little bit. Ishihara's shadow clone left with Orochimaru and others. Teacher, I need psychic skills. While running wildly, Ishihara said to Orochimaru. Psychic skills, okay. Orochimaru was startled when he heard this, looked at him in surprise, and then nodded. He bit his fingers and formed seals with his hands, summoned a psychic scroll, and handed it over. This is the scroll on which I signed a contract with Longdi Cave. Just write your name on it. Thank you, teacher. Ishihara smiled upon seeing this. Although he knew that Orochimaru would not refuse after he said it, he did not expect Orochimaru to be so straightforward. Time was urgent, he did not have time to think too much, he directly opened the scroll and wrote his name. Next, please teach me the summoning technique. After writing, Ishihara said hurriedly. Orochimaru looked at him deeply. He already understood what Ishihara was going to do. Although he was shocked and felt incredible, he chose to remain silent when thinking of Ishihara's talent. And quickly taught Ishihara the summoning technique. Soon, Orochimaru finished his explanation. They had also left the battlefield for a distance. Ishihara stopped, stood there, closed his eyes and fell into thought. Contract, blood, coordinates, summoning. The summoning technique is the most common space-time ninjutsu in the ninja world. Common also means high adaptability. As long as there is a contract, you can summon spirits, and there is almost no need to learn. It does not require a threshold to master like other blood limits. It is the most suitable secret technique for him to learn now. That's right, he is going to create space-time ninjutsu now. If the summoning technique is not enough, go to Konoha to steal the Flying Thunder God technique and learn it again. Until you learn it, since Obito dares to come to the door, even if he can't kill him, he must hurt him. Ishihara opened his eyes, gently bit his finger, and then output a small amount. Summoning technique. Bang! A small snake appeared in front of him, hissing and spitting out its tongue. The consumption of chakra is not large, but there was a unique fluctuation just now. This is the secret of the summoning technique. He let the little snake move freely, and he continued to perform the summoning technique. Bang, bang, bang. Snakes were summoned one after another. And Ishihara's perception of the fluctuations that belong to the time-space ninjutsu became clearer and clearer, and the chakra running route in his body gradually became clearer. Is this to create the secret of time-space? Ming Terumi next to him muttered to himself, his eyes full of brilliance. Mizuki and others next to him were dumbfounded when they heard the words. What a joke. This is in the battle, even the most genius can't do it in such a short time. Ming Terumi snorted coldly when she saw their expressions, and said proudly. Watch carefully, if Ishihara wants to do it, he will definitely do it. She is even more confident than Ishihara himself. Orochimaru next to him looked at Ishihara in silence. Ishihara, can you create a miracle this time? Hiss, hiss. There were more and more snakes under his feet. Ishihara was getting more and more excited. He gradually sensed that special fluctuation. And there were more and more spiritual lights in his mind, which began to collide and explode. Suddenly, he stopped and looked at the little snakes underground and whispered, Okay, you can go back. Orochimaru and Mei Terumi were stunned and widened their eyes. It's already succeeded. How can it be so fast? Ishihara looked at the two of them speechlessly. Mei Terumi and Orochimaru were a little embarrassed. Bang, bang, bang. The little snakes disappeared one by one. Ishihara felt the connection between himself and the little snakes, the trajectory of the chakra, and the mysterious fluctuations that emerged again. But it's not enough. He continued to perform the summoning technique, and this time he consumed a lot more chakra. Bang! A giant snake several dozen meters long appeared, exuding a strong aura, staring at Ishihara and others fiercely. Asshole, who summoned me? It was me. Ishihara stood up, exuding the unique aura of the immortal body without hiding. Orochimaru, who is he? Feeling the aura like that of the white snake immortal, the giant snake trembled all over, and his eyes became terrified. Orochimaru smiled. This is my disciple, Ishihara, and also the contractor of Raichi Cave. The giant snake laughed dryly. Ha ha, ha 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 ha, it turns out to be one of us. Little brother, do you need any help? The arrogant face made Shueyu and others want to laugh. Ishihara performed the shadow clone technique again, and then the shadow clone stepped forward and said, "Take my clone back to Raichi Cave." Yes. Ishihara's aura and terrifying aura made him dare not resist at all, let alone ask more questions, and he immediately disappeared on the spot. Soon, the shadow clone that returned to the Raichi Cave was released by itself. A large amount of information instantly returned to Ishihara's mind. So this is the feeling of space teleportation. You have personally experienced space teleportation and studied the knowledge related to the summoning technique. You have created the secret technique of teleportation. Teleportation technique. You can teleport to any chakra coordinate related to you through the connection between chakras. Success. Ishihara showed a happy expression. Then, without waiting for Orochimaru and Maid Terumi to ask, he directly released the shadow clone and disappeared on the spot. Ishihara, who was surrounded by the wood escape, immediately received all the information. Looking at the close-up tailed beast ball in the approaching wood escape, he directly activated the secret technique. Teleportation technique. Swish. Ishihara's figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. Boom. The tailed beast ball fell and a violent explosion occurred. The violent force directly tore the surrounding wood escape into pieces, but it was soon submerged by more wood escape again. What happened? Obito stared at the battlefield intently, without any relaxation. Soon, Zetsu connected with Obito's wood release and sensed it, and said in shock. Ishihara is gone. What do you mean gone? Obito asked with a frown. There is no body of Ishihara inside, nor anything related to him, it's as if he disappeared from there. Obito was shocked by Zetsu's words. Isn't this description talking about space-time ninjutsu? That guy has mastered the space-time ninjutsu. Obito's face instantly became extremely ugly. No one knows better than him how difficult space-time ninjutsu is to deal with. Mastering the space and time ninjutsu makes you invincible to a certain extent. Even after so long, he still felt frightened when he thought of the battle with the fourth Hokage. What's more important is that Ishihara is not as concerned as the fourth Hokage, and there is no way to restrict him. Even if Nagato came, there was nothing he could do. For a moment, Obito felt like retreating. But, at this moment, the change suddenly increased. Brush. Ishihara's figure suddenly appeared next to him, and his palm wrapped in thunder stabbed Obito's neck fiercely like a knife. Obito's pupils shrank suddenly, his hair stood on end, and his heart skipped a beat. Why does this guy show up next to me? His eyes were fixed on the hand that was so close and still approaching, his pupils constricted to a small point. Hurry up, Obito roared crazily in his heart. Kaleidoscope's pupil power explodes crazily. Click. The thunder release chakra touched the mask on Obito's face, and it was instantly covered with cracks. Kill. Ishihara's expression was cold. If Obito could be killed here, he would never show mercy. As long as Obito's Mangekyo Sharingan can be retained, that's enough. Bang. The mask is broken. Hurry up and blur it out for me. Obito's eyes were about to burst, and his already red eyes were now as red as blood. But the distance between the two is too close. Ishihara's speed is too fast. Poof. Ishihara's palm pierced Obito's throat, and then under the influence of inertia, his whole body penetrated Obito's body and rushed forward. Blood flowers bloom in the sky. It feels wrong. Ishihara's heart sank and he turned to look at Obito. He knew that he only had one chance just now, and Obito would disappear without hesitation after that. He had no chance anymore. Opposite him, Obito was covering his neck with his hands, his palms were covered with blood, and blood was flowing from the corners of his mouth. Ho ho. Obito's throat was as loud as a broken bellows, and his eyes were fixed on Ishihara, full of murderous intent. At the same time, I felt extremely terrified. Too dangerous. If it hadn't been for the fact that he tilted his head just now when Ishihara's palm was about to touch his throat, and at the same time cast hollow. He has already been beheaded. But even so, his neck was almost cut off in half. If it weren't for the powerful recovery ability of the first-generation Hokage's cells, he would be dead now. It really failed. Ishihara sighed in disappointment. Asshole. Puff. He yelled rustic curses, but his mouth was full of blood. Most of the neck that was almost severed recovered so quickly. It seems like I have to find time to study the cells of the first Hokage. Ishihara felt awe-inspiring. Obito moved his recovered neck and looked at Ishihara with lingering fear. Did you just use the space-time ninjutsu? Although it was a question, Obito was extremely sure. But what he couldn't figure out was how Ishihara located his own coordinates. Whether it is one's own divine power or the fourth Hokage's flying thunder god technique, the prerequisite for transfer is to have a purposeful positioning. But Obito was sure that Ishihara had not left any marks on his body. Won't you understand if you try again? Ishihara said calmly. Do you think I'm an idiot? Obito gritted his teeth and cursed angrily. He knew that he could no longer solve Ishihara. So it's time to retreat. Ishihara brought him too much horror, and just being with him made him feel uneasy. But thinking of the way Ishihara appeared next to him just now, he didn't dare to act rashly. I have to find out how he positions me. Obito took a deep breath. He knew it was dangerous, but if he didn't, it would be a huge risk. Absolutely. Yakura, Obito shouted. Then a white thing appeared on his body and gradually enveloped him completely like armor. In the distance, the three tails were also running fast. What are you doing? Do you want to use this kind of thing to stop me? Ishihara was a little puzzled. Then he saw Obito quickly rushing towards the location of the three tails while maintaining the seal with both hands. Want to run? Ishihara felt something was wrong. But he couldn't let Obito go, so he immediately chased after him, but soon he felt helpless. Obito remained in a hollow state, and his attacks were unable to work at all. Then, under Ishihara's shocked eyes, Obito jumped into Sanwei's mouth. In the air, Obito turned back and slowly said two words. Goodbye. Not good. Ishihara's expression changed slightly. He felt the coordinates on Obito's body, and Obito materialized. The art of teleportation. Brush. Ishihara immediately disappeared from the spot and appeared in Sanbi's mouth and beside Obito. Then he slashed out his sword as quickly as possible. Puff. The real touch came, but Ishihara's face changed slightly. He actually attacked Obito so easily. He looked up at Obito. He saw Obito looking at him with a ferocious smile on his face. Then his body disappeared from the spot and appeared not far away. Izanagi. Ishihara was a little surprised. Yes, thanks to this technique, I finally figured out the secret of your space-time ninjutsu. Obito smiled, but he was a little relieved in his heart. Fortunately, he made a test first for caution, otherwise he would be dead if he was attacked when he was not prepared at all. Ishihara didn't say anything, just looked at him calmly. Obito sneered. To activate the space-time ninjutsu, you need coordinates. But I don't have anything like the Flying Thunder God mark on my body. The only thing related to you is the chakra you left in my wound. So your space-time ninjutsu can only use your own chakra as coordinates for positioning. I'm right. Ishihara frowned when he heard this. Obito's heart skipped a beat. Did he guess wrong? I didn't expect Ishihara to frown and say, "You've wasted so much effort, creating a white guy, jumping into the mouth of the three-tailed beast, and Izanagi, just for this." He was a little speechless. With such a big show, he thought Obito was really holding back his big move. As a result, that's it. Obito's face suddenly turned black. He was embarrassed and angry. The action he was proud of didn't seem to be worth being proud of. Ishihara continued to ask, "So what's next? You're going to run away?" Obito vomited blood in frustration, staring at Ishihara with blazing eyes, wishing he could kill him with his eyes. He had clearly planned to escape next. But after Ishihara said it, wouldn't it be too embarrassing and humiliating for him to escape like this? But he was even more unwilling to risk his life to stay. So between humiliation and losing his life, Obito hesitated for a moment and chose humiliation. He stared at Ishihara coldly and said, "I lost the initiative this time. Next time, when I'm ready, I will never let you go." As soon as the voice fell, he raised his hand and slashed the arm that had just been cut off by Ishihara with a kunai, cutting off another section. Then, in Ishihara's surprised eyes, Obito put his hand directly on his neck and pulled it hard. Puff! The part of flesh and blood containing Ishihara's little chakra was torn off by him. The scene was extremely bloody. Obito's face was full of coldness, as if he could not feel the pain, and he said viciously, "Next time we meet, it will definitely not end like today." Ishihara's expression was slightly cold. He really couldn't feel his own chakra on Obito. But seeing that Obito was a little too proud, he couldn't help but sneer. "Then you'd better be prepared for me to develop a new secret technique next time." Obito's expression froze, and he looked at Ishihara deeply, turned around and ran towards the esophagus of the three-tailed beast. There is a different space belonging to the three-tailed beast, and the interior is intricate. Not only can it block Ishihara's vision, but it can also buy him time to use the power of God to absorb his body into the power of God space. And Ishihara, who knew this, did not chase him. The possibility of catching up was too small. Inside the three-tailed beast, Ishihara looked at the flesh and blood around him, and a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. In his plan, the tailed beast is an important part of his research. So he directly inserted his palm into the flesh of the three-tailed beast, opened his Byakugan, and began to observe the chakra of the three-tailed beast. This chakra is completely different from the chakra in the ninja's body. It is full of violent and evil aura, and the quality is completely different. Legend has it that the tailed beast will be resurrected even if it is killed. I wonder if it is related to this chakra. After observing for a while, Ishihara frowned. He could feel that there was something special in the chakra of the tailed beast. But with his current knowledge and observation ability, he could not analyze it for the time being, and could only make a vague judgment. This chakra gives me the feeling that it has undergone an evolution and is at a higher level than the chakra in the ninja's body. The tailed beast is the product of the six-path sage splitting the chakra of the 10 tails, which means that the chakra of the tailed beast is actually the weakened chakra of the 10 tails. This chakra has the characteristics of the 10 tails immortality. Perhaps this is the real reason why the tailed beast is resurrected. After thinking for a long time, Ishihara could not find the answer. Although he also wanted to find out why the tailed beasts were immortal, he also knew that it was too early to study things related to the 10 tails. He could only put it aside for the time being and study it again when he had enough knowledge. Suddenly, the body of the three tails began to shake violently. Ishihara frowned slightly. "Forget it, let's remove Yagura's illusion first." In the vision of the Byakugan, the body of the three tails was full of chakra. After scanning several times, he finally found the location of Yagura. Then he moved quickly and came to the location of Yagura. Then he cut through the flesh wall with a hand knife, revealing Yagura with an angry face. "Asshole, what do you want to do?" Yagura was shocked and angry. Ishihara didn't say anything, but stretched out his finger and put it between his eyebrows. Untie. Buzz. A subtle chakra fluctuation suddenly spread out from Yagura's body. Obito's illusion of controlling Yagura was immediately released, and Yagura was completely awake. But the memory of being controlled by Obito is extremely clear. For a moment, his face looked as exciting as a dying workshop, with turns red and blue. "You Uchiha, how dare you control me? I'm going to kill him." Ishihara said coldly, "That's enough. You can do whatever you want. Now tell me how you plan to thank me for saving you." Yagura's expression changed when he heard this, and he looked up at him, filled with fear. He basically knew all the information Obito knew. So he knew very well how terrifying Ishihara was. But it was hard for him to believe that the calm man in front of him was only 6 years old. "Are you really only 6? Ishihara suddenly had veins popping up on his forehead. But he also knows that his character and thoughts are indeed not like that of a 6-year-old child. Especially compared to Jugo, who also has a physique close to that of an adult, he looks more like a normal young man. However, he had no intention of explaining, and stared at Yagura coldly, making his heart sink. "What do you want?" "Water mirror technique," Ishihara said. This technique can even copy the power of the perfect 9 tails Jinchuriki and 8 tails Jinchuriki. This was the only ninjutsu Yagura had that interested him. Seeing his silence, Ishihara raised his eyebrows and said, "Why, can't you?" "Can." Yagura hesitated but agreed, "But I want to make a deal with you. I hope I can exchange the secret technique in your hands." Ishihara sneered, "Do you think the water mirror technique is worth the price?" Seeing that he didn't refuse directly, Yagura became a little excited. "I can pay any price." He understood that because he was controlled, the strength of the Mist Ninja Village was greatly weakened. There is an urgent need to regain strength now. The secret technique in Ishihara's hands is undoubtedly the best choice. He knew that he could not defeat Ishihara, and since the opponent had mastered the time and space ninjutsu, the only option was to trade. Ishihara was a little surprised, and then said, "If you can find a secret technique, a forbidden technique, or a ninja within the realm of blood inheritance that interests me, I won't be able to exchange it with you." The results of his recent research on tailed beast chakra made him realize that he still needed more research and knowledge. So just cast a wide net. Anyway, as long as Yagura is not given important secret techniques. Good. Yagura was very excited, and then said hurriedly, "Our Mist Ninja Village has the secret technique of water transformation of the Onodin clan. Is this okay?" Ishihara was stunned. "Timime has already given it to me." Yagura was stunned and forced a smile. "It doesn't matter, we still have blood inheritance limited corpse bone veins. Terumi may also found me." Yagura's face turned a little dark. "There are ninjas with ice escape in the kingdom of water, I can help you find them." Ishihara was also speechless. "Timime has been found." He couldn't help but said, "Not only these, Terumi May even gave herself to me for research." Yagura was immediately stunned and murmured in a trembling voice, "This wasteful thing. This is all the family wealth of Mist Ninja Village." He finally made up his mind to exchange with Ishihara. As a result, Mei Terumi finished it first. "Hate it." Yagura couldn't help but ask, "Then what did she get from you?" "Lots of secrets." Hearing this, Yagura couldn't help but change his expression. Ishihara sneered, "I advise you not to do unnecessary things. I have sealed those secret skills with a special sealing technique. Even if you kill her, you can't get it." Yagura suddenly laughed when he heard this. He did have such a plan just now, but now it seems that it won't work. "Let's cancel the tailed beast transformation first," Ishihara couldn't help but said as he smelled the unpleasant smell in the air. Yagura nodded, and as a perfect Jinchuriki, he easily released his tailed beast transformation. Outside world. With a bang, Sanwei's huge body disappeared from the spot. Ishihara and Yagura fell from the sky. Seeing this, Orochimaru and others from a distance as well as the ninjas from the Mist Ninja Village hurried over. Terumi May rushed towards Ishihara excitedly. Ishihara hurriedly stretched out his hand to block her, pointed at Yagura and said, "His illusion has been lifted, you can handle the rest by yourself." With his own deterrence, Yagura didn't dare to do anything to Terumi May. Moreover, Yagura's prestige in the Mist Ninja Village has already dropped to freezing point. If they hadn't been concerned about Obito's existence before, Terumi May and others would have overthrown Yagura's Mizukage position long ago. Now that Obito has escaped, Terumi May and others don't need to worry. Yakura. Upon hearing this, Mei Terumi's attention was immediately diverted, and she stared at Yagura with a face filled with resentment. Terumi May. Yagura also stared at her with some anger. He hated the fact that he had exhausted all the wealth of the Mist Ninja Village but failed to improve the village's strength. Ishihara didn't want to be involved in the troubles in Mist Ninja Village, so he walked directly outside. Chao Ma Kyun 7634800157. Orochimaru followed him and couldn't help but ask, "How is the enemy?" He ran away, and the other party also mastered the time and space ninjutsu. Ishihara said with some regret. "That's it. It seems that if you want to kill him, you have to wait until next time." Orochimaru licked the corners of his lips and said coldly, "I am going to improve my strength in the next period of time." A cold light flashed in Ishihara's eyes. If his hard power is strong enough, he will never let Obito escape this time. Orochimaru nodded upon hearing this. He also felt the sense of urgency, but then he said angrily, "Our base has been destroyed. I'm afraid we will have to find a new place to practice and research." There are also a lot of research materials and experimental equipment buried underground. The more Orochimaru talked, the angrier he became. Although the base of the Mist Village was built temporarily, its internal configuration is the best among all bases. It's a pity that it was destroyed. At this moment, Yagura next to him suddenly came over. If you don't mind, I can find a place for you. Orochimaru showed surprise. Yagura is an iron-blooded ruler, otherwise he would not have come up with the blood mist policy as soon as he came to power. Such a person is willing to let two strange strong men stay in the territory of the water country, which is simply too strange. I have a deal with him, Ishihara explained, then looked at Yagura and said, "Thank you, Mizukage." He didn't want to waste time on finding a base. Of course it would be best to have a ready-made one. That's where Sanwei used to like to stay. It has a beautiful environment and there are buildings nearby. Upon hearing this, Yagura immediately introduced with a smile on his face, and finally arranged for one of his confidants to lead the way. Ishihara picked up Obito's arm that he had chopped off before, took the water mirror jutsu scroll sent by Yagura, and then went to the place Yagura said. Terumi-Mei did not leave with her. She had to deal with the affairs of the Mist Ninja Village first. After Ishihara left, the atmosphere between Terumi-Mei and Yagura suddenly became tense. A negotiation concerning the fate of the entire Mist Ninja Village began. Ishihara didn't know what happened on Terumi-Mei's side. He, Orochimaru, Yakushi Kabuto and others were led by Yagura's cronies to a small lake. The clear lake water, rippling blue waves, willows clinging to the river bank, green grass everywhere, the beautiful environment is not like a place that should be in the blood mist. There are several buildings not far from the lake. They were all used by Yagura when he came here to practice before. The environment here is good, but if it is close to the water, it is not suitable for establishing a base underground. Orochimaru was not satisfied. He likes dark surroundings, and here the sun shines. Teacher, I have trouble with the base. Let's just treat this place as a temporary training ground. Ishihara nodded. There were too many secrets in their base, so it would be more appropriate to build it underground. Orochimaru agreed and then asked, "Are you planning to practice here?" "Yes, the venue here is large enough, but the underground is a little unsuitable." "Is the venue big enough?" Orochimaru looked at him in surprise. "Do you need a big place to practice?" Ishihara immediately laughed when he heard this. "The next step is to let the teacher see my cultivation method. Maybe it can give you some inspiration." Orochimaru couldn't help but look forward to it after hearing this. The art of multiple shadow clones. Bang 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 bang. Hundreds of Ishihara's shadow clones appeared around. Immediately afterwards, all the shadow clones immediately picked up the blades of grass from their feet and placed them in their palms, and began to release the wind release chakra. Hiss. For a moment, it seemed that the entire space was filled with a sharp aura. Using shadow clones to speed up practice is indeed a very good idea. 10 clones are 10 times the speed, and 100 clones are 100 times the speed. If you use this method to practice, the time for practice will be greatly reduced. Orochimaru suddenly realized it and showed a look of wonder, and then felt a little pity. However, although practicing this way is fast, it can also relieve the burden of the shadow clone on the body 100 times as usual. I can't imagine anyone else but you who could bear this burden. Ishihara said nothing when he heard this, but a strange color flashed in his eyes. He knew that Naruto in the future would be able to practice with hundreds or even thousands of shadow clones at the same time. But even if he has a brain with superhuman understanding and a body transformed into an immortal, 100 shadow clones are already his limit. To be honest, he couldn't understand how Naruto could bear 100-fold accumulation of memories and fatigue. However, the teacher can use a small amount of shadow clones to assist in practice, which can also speed up the process. Orochimaru smiled when he heard this. With my strength, it should be no problem for 3 or 4 shadow clones to practice at the same time. Even he was extremely excited to be able to increase his cultivation speed 3 to 4 times out of thin air. At this time, Ishihara released the shadow clone. Suddenly a large amount of memory experience and fatigue were instantly superimposed on him. Ishihara's body trembled slightly, and his head felt a little swollen and painful. After a while, he recovered and smiled bitterly. Even if I want to practice with 100 shadow clones, it will be extremely difficult. Based on the progress of the training just now, it will probably take 3 days to complete the practice of changing the nature of the wind escape chakra. It took 3 days to maintain the current intensity of practice. Ishihara felt that it was much more difficult than studying the limits of blood succession. Orochimaru was suddenly speechless. You can master the changes in the nature of wind escape chakra in 3 days, and you're still not satisfied. You must know that for other people, the time for this kind of practice is calculated in units of years, or even 10 years. How fast do you want to go? In the following time, Orochimaru and others witnessed with their own eyes how fast Ishihara practiced with 100 shadow clones at the same time. How shocking! 3 days later, Ishihara mastered the changes in the nature of wind release chakra. 3 more days later, mastered the changes in the nature of fire release chakra. 3 more days later, mastered the changes in the nature of earth escape chakra. 3 more days later, mastered the changes in the properties of water escape chakra. 3 more days later, mastered the changes in nature of thunder release chakra. In just half a month, Ishihara mastered the changes in the nature of 5 chakras. And it has reached the level where it can condense the blood inheritance limit. Orochimaru was shocked to the point of numbness. It's just that his understanding is terrifying, but his cultivation speed is actually so fast. It's totally unreasonable. But even so, Ishihara was still not satisfied. He began to practice the form changes of chakra. Another 15 days later. Finally done. Ishihara looked at the condensed lightning spear in his hand and became excited. You have practiced a lot of lightning chakra nature changes and form changes, and you created the secret technique Thunder Spear. You have practiced a lot of lightning chakra nature changes and form changes, and you created the secret technique Flame Blade. You have practiced a lot of lightning chakra nature changes and form changes, and you created the secret technique Spiral Water Blade. In 15 days, he completed the practice of 5 kinds of chakra form changes. He also reached the level required by the blood limit. More importantly, he successfully created several powerful secret techniques during the practice. This was undoubtedly an unexpected surprise for him. On the other side, Orochimaru brought Kabuto Yakushi and others to the other side of the lake, across a forest. Suigetsu practiced absent-mindedly. Half a month has passed. Do you think Ishihara-sama has finished his training? Jugo nodded affirmatively. That's for sure. Ishihara-sama has not failed to do what he wants to do. Suiyu twitched his mouth and said a little crazy, but that's the form change of 5 kinds of chakra. Orochimaru next to him suddenly stopped practicing and lay on the ground. Yakushi, Kabuto and others were a little surprised. They knew how diligent Orochimaru was. Even they admired him very much. Now he was resting. Orochimaru, what's wrong with you? Yakushi Kabuto asked worriedly. He felt a kind of intimacy with Orochimaru, so he cared about him very much. Orochimaru sighed and looked at Yakushi Kabuto and Suiyu and others with a lonely look. Do you know that it took me nearly 30 years from the beginning of my practice to mastering the nature and form changes of the 5 kinds of chakra? And Ishihara only took 1 month. 30 years and 1 month. Orochimaru muttered to himself with an autistic face. Kabuto, Yakushi and the others didn't know what to say after hearing this. Even if they were just listening, they were a little desperate. This gap was too big, and people couldn't even muster the courage to catch up, and even lost interest in training. A few people looked at each other and lay down beside Orochimaru. Autistic boy +5. Ishihara didn't know about Orochimaru's situation. His training has been going on intensively in recent times, and there is no time to waste. Although practicing with 100 shadow clones at the same time can speed up the speed, the burden brought by it also makes him have no energy and time to deal with other things. It was not until he completed the basic training of chakra that he checked the information left by Maid Terumi before. He didn't look at the specific process, but looked directly at the result. Yagura temporarily retained the position of Mizukage to stabilize the situation in Mist Village. At the same time, Maid Terumi served as the assistant to Mizukage. The power of Mizukage owned by Yagura was divided up and almost completely hollowed out. Not only that, he also had to deal with the 6-tailed Jinchuriki who was about to get out of control. Maid Terumi needs to stay in the village to deal with things. So far, the Mist Village has temporarily stabilized. After watching, Ishihara started practicing again. This time, he wanted to practice bloodline limits. For him who created these secret techniques, as long as he mastered the basic changes of chakra, it would be extremely easy to master bloodline limits. Dissolution. Ishihara stretched out his palm, condensed the chakra in his palm, and then began to change the bloodline limits. In an instant, the chakra in his hand turned into a liquid of dissolution. Dissolution was mastered so easily. Then it was boiling escape. Ice escape. There was no difficulty at all. The 3 bloodline limits were mastered so easily by him. Hiss. Suddenly, a sound of sucking in cold air came. Ishihara frowned, turned his head and looked, and immediately saw Orochimaru and others who were dumbfounded. Teacher, why are you here? Orochimaru and others looked at him stiffly, and then turned away stiffly, without saying a word during the whole process. It's just a bloodline limit, so I can understand why Ishihara developed it quickly. Yeah, ice escape and the like, he can do it naturally. It's just 3 bloodline limits, don't be surprised. Listening to the strange discussions of several people, Ishihara shook his head. This must be because he has practiced so hard that he has become stupid. The practice can finally come to an end. Ishihara breathed a long sigh of relief, feeling relaxed all over his body. Then he gradually became excited. Because he was going to start a new research project next. It was also a bloodline limit that he was going to strengthen next. Wood escape. Ishihara hurriedly walked into the newly built building next to him. This was a temporary base built by Orochimaru in the past month, and it was fully equipped. Coming to the laboratory, feeling the long-lost atmosphere, Ishihara couldn't help but feel a little excited, and hurriedly took out Obito's broken hand and began to study. First, microscopic observation at the cellular level was carried out. Although it is only the body tissue of white Zetsu cultivated with the cells of the first generation of Hokage, the activity of the cells and the content of life energy are far greater than the cells of ordinary ninjas. And just like the secret art of water transformation, these cells also feel like they are eroded by wood release. There are also a lot of yang release chakra, which can be clearly sensed without distinguishing. No wonder the life energy is so rich. As the data was recorded one by one, the secrets in the cells of white Zetsu were discovered by Ishihara one after another. Until the end, when there were no new discoveries, Ishihara started the second step. Life chain. Swish. Ishihara's chakra was injected into Obito's broken arm. Obito's broken arm is completely composed of white Zetsu cells, which is a weakened version of the cells of the first generation of Hokage. Ishihara instantly felt the powerful life energy at the moment of connection. But this is not important. The key now is how to stimulate wood release. Suddenly, he had an idea. Try injecting more chakra into it. As more and more chakra was infused into the broken arm, changes occurred. Crack. A green branch grew out of the broken arm, and then began to grow wildly. Ishihara was immediately refreshed, concentrating and calming his mind, trying his best to sense the changes in chakra, and his brain was working frantically. This is wood style, which is formed by the fusion of earth style and water style, followed by the participation of a large amount of yang style chakra. No, in fact, the fusion of earth style and water style has already formed wood style. But in order to truly exert the power of wood style, a large amount of yang style chakra must be used. The order and proportion of fusion are: you studied the cells of white Zetsu and gained insight into the principles of the blood limit wood style. You created the wood style training method. Wood style training method. Wood style can be used after mastering it. It's so easy to complete. Ishihara looked at the broken arm that was completely entangled by branches, and was a little surprised. But the information in his mind was true. Wood escape was far from being as complicated as he imagined, but extremely simple. It was not much different from ice escape, melting escape, and boiling escape. It was just a blood limit formed by the fusion of earth escape and water escape. The only thing that affects the power of wood escape is the amount of yang escape chakra, or the amount of chakra. If you want to use wood escape to the power of the first generation of Hokage, you must first have the amount of chakra like the first generation of Hokage. Otherwise, you can only be a builder like Yamato. I wonder how powerful I can be when I use wood escape now. Ishihara was a little eager to try, and hurriedly closed the laboratory and came to the lake outside. He stretched out a palm and gently pressed it on the ground, and then began to condense wood escape. Buzz! The wood escape chakra poured into the ground. Crack! The ground broke. The tender green buds drilled out of the ground, and then began to grow wildly, and in the blink of an eye it became a towering tree. Then, one after another, big trees emerged from the ground around him. In the blink of an eye, a dense forest of towering trees appeared here. Orochimaru, who was far away, opened his mouth in shock when he saw this scene. After all, this is wood release. The secret technique used by the first generation of Hokage to pacify the ninja world. In the eyes of a ninja like Orochimaru who grew up in Konoha, wood release is much more mysterious and terrifying than Sharingan. Especially Orochimaru personally presided over the cell transplantation plan of the first generation of Hokage in Konoha. He knows more about the horror of wood release. But now Ishihara has mastered it. Orochimaru walked over and asked in a daze, "You developed wood release?" Ishihara was stunned, then nodded. Orochimaru felt a little lost. He had been unable to solve the problem of cell transplantation of the first generation of Hokage, and even thought it was impossible. But now it was easily solved by Ishihara. This made him feel indescribably complicated. Seeing this, Ishihara understood his mentality and said with a smile, "Teacher, don't worry too much. In fact, the wood blood limit is no different. The wood release training method is already available. If the teacher is willing, you will be able to master wood release soon." Orochimaru shook his head with a wry smile. "Originally, I had already prepared the cells of the first Hokage for you, and I thought you could study it when you have time in the future. I didn't expect you to have solved it now," Ishihara said helplessly. "I got a wood release arm from the masked man who controlled Yagura before, so I studied it. To be honest, I didn't expect the research on wood release to be completed so quickly. This speed is much faster than his research on boiling release and ice release." Orochimaru couldn't help laughing when he heard it. "Only you dared to say this. Others can't even transplant the cells of the first Hokage, let alone create a wood release training method. Is it difficult to successfully fuse the so-called blood limit? If you have Ishihara's training method, it's really not difficult at all. As long as you practice step by step, you can master the blood limit. But if not, it would be as difficult as ascending to heaven. Otherwise, the ninja world would not have seen a new bloodline limit for many years. Even though he has conducted many forbidden techniques research, he still has no clues. It can only be said that the gap between people is too big." Then Ishihara talked to him about the wood escape and his discovery. Orochimaru was immediately excited. Having studied the cells of the first generation of Hokage in depth, he knew very well the horror of the first generation of Hokage's physique. But the immortal body he cultivated is even more powerful, completely surpassing the physique of the first generation of Hokage. Even now, after only practicing for a period of time, his own chakra amount has increased by more than double. Once completed, the chakra amount will be incredibly huge. If the power of wood escape is related to the amount of chakra, doesn't it mean that I may also have the wood escape like the first generation of Hokage? Ishihara smiled and nodded. In fact, this theory can be fully applied to all ninjutsu and bloodline limits. As long as the amount of chakra you release is large enough, the power of ninjutsu can reach a strong enough level. The power of the Great Fireball technique performed with the chakra of the genin level is naturally incomparable to that of the Great Fireball technique performed with the chakra of the Kage level. Just like the Doryugeki technique that he and Orochimaru performed together before, it also has the terrifying power to change the terrain. In the following time, Orochimaru began to shift the focus of his practice to the sage body, and even his bloodline limit was only practiced with the shadow clone. And Ishihara did the same. In order to speed up the progress of sagehood, he directly turned on the heavenly demon tattoo. In this state, the heavenly demon tattoo will automatically balance the proportion of natural energy in his body. At this time, practicing the sage body will speed up the sagehood of cells. The speed of sagehood is 2 or 3 times faster than before. While the main body is practicing, Ishihara's clone is still conducting research. But this time the target has become the corpse vein. Lord Ishihara, Kimimaro looked a little nervous. "I have seen too many shocking scenes of Ishihara these days. Don't worry, I just happened to have some free time recently to study your corpse vein. Next, you can directly use the corpse vein. Ishihara directly opened the Byakugan to observe. Yes, Kimimaro hurriedly did so, in the vision of the Byakugan. As Kimimaro used the corpse vein, the bones in his body suddenly underwent wonderful changes. A series of cells related to bones are rapidly proliferating, generating new bones, and the density of bone cells in this kind of bones is also far higher than that of ordinary bones. And this is the principle of the corpse vein, which controls the generation, decomposition, and hardening of bones in the body. He can understand it just by observing with the Byakugan. But he doesn't understand why Kimimaro can control bones. Although the yang release chakra is involved in the whole process, it is not that simple. Because he found that there is a very small amount of chakra in Kimimaro's body, which is very obscure and full of destructive aura. It looks very much like the chakra of the three-tailed beast that he had studied before. This made Ishihara think of a move of Kagaya Otsutsuki. Kusha Hegu. It is also a move derived from bones. Could it be that Shigumai is the lower bloodline limit of Kusha Hegu? It's just that Kimimaro's talent is stronger, so the aura of Kusha Hegu contained in his body is stronger. Ishihara sighed, feeling a little troubled. He doesn't have enough foundation to study the 10 tails related things yet. Although there will be a flash of light in his mind, it is very little and can't make him realize it at all. However, although he can't analyze the essence of Shigumai, Ishihara still doesn't stop researching. Next, he uses the life chain to connect himself and Kimimaro's chakra together. Carefully experience the changes in chakra and bones during the use of Shigumai. Soon, a lot of information poured into Ishihara's mind, and he began to analyze Shigumai. This time, the main role was played by the knowledge related to medical ninjutsu he had learned before. By injecting a large amount of yang-style chakra, the growth of bone cells can be accurately stimulated, and the size and shape can be controlled. Interesting, the lifespan of bone cells does not change at all after the division of bone cells. This should be one of the characteristics of the 10 tails. The skin can recover quickly after being pierced by bones. This self-healing ability is very similar to the ability of the Uzumaki clan. The corpse bone vein can also be regarded as a kind of immortal body. With careful research, the secret of the corpse bone vein was clearly presented in front of Ishihara. Although he could not completely analyze that special chakra, he had already understood the other parts. Medical ninjutsu, yang-style chakra, life energy, human tissue. A lot of spiritual light appeared in his mind, and began to flicker and collide. You studied the chakra nature of the corpse bone vein, discovered the principle and process of the corpse bone vein, and created the secret technique corpse bone vein training method. Closing square bracket, corpse bone vein training method. After mastering it, you can control the generation, decomposition, and hardness and density of bones in the body. This secret technique has a big loophole. Ishihara shook his head and frowned slightly. Although this secret technique has achieved the same effect as the Taketori clan's corpse vein. But there is a fatal loophole that cannot be made up. That is the self-healing ability. After Kimimaro performed the corpse vein, the bones pierced the flesh and skin and grew out, and the flesh and skin would heal quickly. But his secret technique did not have such an effect. If a person who does not have the self-healing effect uses the corpse vein, he will be killed by the bones in his body before attacking the enemy. The key is that even if he develops a secret technique that can heal quickly, it will greatly shorten the user's lifespan. After all, the bonus of the corpse vein to the lifespan of cells is the characteristic of the 10 tails. He can't do it now. Ishihara was speechless when he looked at the secret technique he created. This is simply a suicide skill. Lord Ishihara. Seeing his solemn expression, Kimimaro couldn't help but get nervous. Ishihara came back to his senses and waved his hand. It's okay, the secret technique suitable for you has been researched, but... Kimimaro, who was about to breathe a sigh of relief, suddenly felt his heart skip a beat. But there is a special energy in your body that accompanies the corpse bone vein, and this energy is constantly eroding your body and lifespan. The stronger you develop the corpse bone vein, the deeper the erosion, and the shorter your lifespan. I suggest you not to practice the corpse bone vein too deeply. Ishihara felt a little sympathetic to Kimimaro. This secret technique may not only be fine for other people of the Bamboo Cutter clan to learn, but can also quickly increase the power of the corpse bone vein. But Kimamaro's talent is too strong, and the side effects are too strong. Sometimes having too strong a talent is not necessarily a good thing. Kimamaro remained silent after hearing this, and said stubbornly, Lord Ishihara, I still want to practice the corpse bone vein, this is the value of my existence. It's up to you. Ishihara shook his head. He was very optimistic about Kimamaro, but he could only wait until later to solve the side effects of the corpse vein. After giving the corpse vein cultivation method to Kimamaro, Ishihara took out the water mirror technique given to him by Yagura. After learning it, Ishihara mastered it quickly, but still could not analyze the principle of this technique. But he had a feeling in his heart that this was another ninjutsu related to the 10 tails, so he had to put it aside for the time being. It was rare for him to have some free time, so Ishihara went to see the progress of Kabuto Yakushi and others. It can only be said that it was okay. The time was too short, and the effect of the bodybuilding exercise was not very obvious. Several people are trying to get started with the secret technique, and it seems that it will take a lot of time. Then he learned about the situation in the Mist Village, which has completely stabilized. The Blood Mist era that Yagura personally opened has completely ended, and the Mist Village has entered an era of peaceful development. At the same time, Yagura also ordered his few confidants to find various secret techniques and blood limit ninjas in the ninja world, hoping to reach a deal with Ishihara. So far, all of Ishihara's purposes for coming to the Mist Village have been achieved. Whether it is the study of bloodline limits or secret techniques, Ishihara has deepened his research on ninjutsu and chakra. He even analyzed some information related to the power of the 10 tails. Next, he needs to study more secret techniques and bloodline limits to reach the level of being able to analyze the 10 tails as soon as possible. Next stop, it's time to go to Konoha. A few days later. On the streets of Konoha. There were a lot of people and it was very lively. Ishihara walked out of a barbecue restaurant and couldn't help but sigh at the peaceful village. Compared with the Mist Village, this place is simply a paradise. But soon, his eyes were attracted by several Konoha ninjas passing by. They were wearing green vests, with proud expressions and fan patterns on the back of their clothes. Konoha Police Force. A strange color flashed in Ishihara's eyes. Uchiha shouldn't leave so hastily. At least give me a few more pairs of Mangekyo Sharingan for me to study. He didn't care whether the Uchiha was exterminated. He didn't care whether the Uchiha would really launch a rebellion and cause Konoha to suffer heavy losses. But he cares whether the Uchiha clan can have a few more pairs of Mangekyo Sharingan to provide him with more research materials. And this is one of the purposes of his coming to Konoha this time. Suddenly, Ishihara paused and looked at the opposite side with some surprise. There, a black-haired boy was looking at him with extremely shocked eyes. A smile appeared on Ishihara's face, and he walked to the other side as if nothing had happened, and patted the other's stiff shoulder. What a coincidence, Itachi. That's right, the person who appeared in front of him was Uchiha Itachi. Itachi felt the palm falling on his body, and his body suddenly became extremely stiff and tense. He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth, fearing that he would not be able to help but instinctively fight back. Chapter 51. But all of this could not hide his inner shock at the moment. Why is this guy here? The encounter with Ishihara some time ago was simply Itachi's nightmare. Even after returning to Konoha, he often dreamed of what happened that day, and then woke up in a cold sweat. As time went by, and with all the recent events and pressures, Itachi had forgotten the existence of Ishihara. However, after meeting Ishihara, those shameful memories resurfaced, extremely clear. This made Itachi extremely angry. What made him even more uneasy was that Ishihara actually appeared on the streets of Konoha in a swagger, without the slightest defense. Wasn't he afraid of being caught by Konoha? Or did he have something else to rely on? Developed a new secret technique. Thinking of what happened when he met Ishihara before, Itachi's heart suddenly became extremely heavy. He took a deep breath and tried to act calm. How did you end up in Konoha? Ishihara laughed at him, trying to pretend to be calm, then pointed at his eyes and said meaningfully, Itachi, you really didn't let me down. Itachi's pupils suddenly shrank, and his heart was shocked. This guy, I don't know what you are talking about. Looking at Itachi, who denied it, Ishihara suddenly laughed. You seem to have forgotten that I studied your Sharingan before. At that time, your pupil power was completely different from now. If I'm not mistaken, you should have opened the Mangekyo Sharingan. Itachi's face changed slightly, thinking of the unpleasant experience last time. His expression suddenly turned cold, and he growled with gritted teeth. Since you know I opened the Mangekyo, you dare to appear in front of me. He has not forgotten the shame brought to him by the man in front of him. This time, he must wash it away thoroughly. Ishihara sighed when he heard it. It seems that Itachi did open the Mangekyo, which means that Shisui is dead. He has one less pair of Mangekyo that he can study, which is a pity. No, Shisui's Mangekyo seems to be in the hands of Danzo and Itachi respectively, so it's okay. Ishihara's mind was turning, but on the surface he was looking at Itachi with a playful look. You don't think you can resist me by opening the Mangekyo, do you? Although Itachi has opened the Mangekyo now, the only eye technique he can use is Tsukuyomi. Amaterasu and Susanoo have not yet fully awakened and cannot be used. As for Tsukuyomi, Ishihara is not worried. Itachi's face changed slightly when he heard this, and he said coldly. You don't think you can resist the illusion of the Mangekyo Sharingan, do you? In his heart, the Mangekyo Sharingan is very powerful. Especially after experiencing it personally, he felt that the strength gap was completely two dimensions compared to before. Even Ishihara should not be able to stop his Tsukuyomi. Is the illusion of the Mangekyo very strong? Ishihara smiled. Then compare and feel the strength of my illusion. Since the purpose of coming to Konoha this time is the Mangekyo Sharingan, how could he not strengthen his strength in illusion? So he learned several sound illusions from Orochimaru and strengthened the illusion space again. Now his illusion ability is no less than that of the Mangekyo. What? Itachi's pupils shrank suddenly. Ishihara's somewhat illusory voice came to his ears. Illusion space. Buzz. Itachi instantly felt that his vision had changed and came to an unfamiliar space. Illusion. Itachi's heart sank and he immediately tried to remove the illusion, but failed. He was awe-inspiring in his heart and immediately opened the Mangekyo Sharingan without any hesitation. Buzz. The powerful pupil power burst out instantly and broke through the illusion. The vision returned to normal. Itachi looked at Ishihara angrily and was stunned. I saw that Ishihara was staring at his eyes as if he was a little absent-minded at this time, but the breath on his body was extremely active. Asshole. Itachi was immediately furious. The last time Ishihara studied his Sharingan, he was in the same state. This guy was actually studying his Mangekyo Sharingan while fighting with his illusion. Itachi could not help but gnashed his teeth in hatred. Asshole, you also try my eye technique. Wait a minute. Ishihara suddenly woke up and smiled. Itachi had a bad feeling when he saw this. Then he saw Ishihara smiling and saying, "Thank you Itachi, for letting me open the second Magatama of the Sharingan." Just now, when he observed Itachi opening the Mangekyo, the system prompt suddenly came. You have gained insight into the chakra of the Mangekyo Sharingan, you have mastered the Byakugan, which has greatly improved your insight, you have mastered the transparent world, and can predict the enemy's movements, and you have created the Sharingan Training Method Insight Chapter. Sharingan Training Method Insight Chapter. After mastering it, you can open a Magatama, greatly increase the insight of the Sharingan, and predict the enemy's movements. What? Itachi's heart jumped, and he was a little unbelievable. They just met and saw his Mangekyo Sharingan, and the other party's secret technique was perfected again. But the next moment, Itachi was shocked. I saw a single Magatama Sharingan appear in the eyes of Ishihara opposite him, and then the Magatama split into two, becoming a double Magatama Sharingan. Hiss. Itachi couldn't help but take a breath of cold air and cursed in his heart. What kind of talent is this? It's more than outrageous. It's simply unreasonable. Itachi widened his eyes and looked at Ishihara in disbelief. You, how did you do it? Ishihara closed his Sharingan and was a little excited. Let me study your Mangekyo Sharingan and I'll tell you. Don't even think about it. Itachi flatly refused and retreated a few steps vigilantly. Shisui was ambushed by Danzo and his Mangekyo was taken away. He didn't want to follow in his footsteps. But for a while, he didn't dare to use Tsukuyomi on Ishihara, for fear of causing backlash. Haha, you can think about it carefully, I'm not in a hurry. Ishihara was in a good mood and did not force Itachi. He had other plans in mind and turned around to leave. Among the crowd, there were 3 figures staring at Itachi, their expressions full of anger and murderous intent. They were the people sent by the Uchiha clan to monitor Itachi. After Shisui's death, they monitored Itachi even more closely. Seeing that Itachi was so familiar with a stranger, he immediately sensed something was wrong. Especially Itachi's state was obviously different from usual, he was too nervous. There must be some hidden secret between them. Continue to monitor the guy who is talking to Itachi, there is definitely something wrong with him. I will continue to monitor Itachi. Itachi's expression became extremely solemn after Ishihara left. He knew very well that Ishihara must have his own purpose in coming to Konoha. With his strength, if he got involved in Uchiha's affairs, the situation would probably become unpredictable. Hopefully that won't be the case. Itachi frowned and returned home after hesitating. He told Fugaku about this. What? The guy named Ishihara you talked about last time appeared in Konoha. And he also activated the double Magatama Sharingan. Fugaku suddenly stood up and looked at Itachi in shock. That's right, I can't mistake that unique Sharingan aura. Itachi nodded calmly. Fugaku's face suddenly changed after hearing this. Although he didn't quite believe that there could be such a terrifying person in the world, since it was Itachi who said it, he naturally believed it. But this incident made Fugaku somewhat unacceptable for a while. He rubbed his swollen brows and looked at his proudest son. Itachi, what are you going to do? Itachi hesitated for a moment and then said, I plan to tell the 3rd Hokage about this first. Fugaku frowned slightly and listened to him continue. If there is a way in the world to master the Sharingan without Uchiha blood, then our conflict with Konoha will be unnecessary. Hiss. Fugaku's expression suddenly changed, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. The Sharingan is the symbol of the Uchiha clan. If it can be obtained through practice, then who are the Uchiha clan? This must not be allowed to happen. Itachi saw Fugaku's plan and said anxiously. Please don't play his tricks. Ishihara's terror is beyond your imagination. Since he dares to appear in Konoha, he definitely has a powerful trump card. Fugaku was silent for a while and nodded. Okay, you go and report to the 3rd Hokage first. Although Itachi was a little worried, he was also anxious to give this information to the 3rd generation, so he left quickly. Fugaku locked himself in the room, and after hesitating for a while, he finally opened the Mangekyo Sharingan. In that case, let me take a look at the different futures after Ishihara joins. One of his kaleidoscope skills is that he can deduce future developments based on existing information. Fugaku looked a little solemn. The kaleidoscope technique in his left eye can deduce future trends based on existing intelligence. It sounds very scary, after all, time is involved. But this pupil technique has a very big limitation, and that is intelligence. The more information there is, the more accurate the future will be deduced. There are too many factors that can affect the future, and no one can collect all the information, so he has never used this pupil technique. I am just afraid that the deduced results will affect my judgment. But the death of Shisui some time ago brought an abrupt end to the Uchiha clan's long-prepared rebellion. The dissatisfaction and anger within the Uchiha towards the top management of Konoha is getting higher and higher. But the top management of Konoha is becoming more and more aggressive towards Uchiha. The Uchiha clan has reached a life and death situation. Now there is another Ishihara who can activate the Sharingan without having Uchiha blood. It also threatens the status and glory of the Uchiha clan. Fugaku knew that he would have no chance if he didn't use this eye technique. And there is a prerequisite when this technique is performed. That is the direction he must give a deduction. Fugaku took a deep breath. For the first deduction, we must first deal with Ishihara and get the secret technique of opening the Sharingan in his hands. Start. Buzz. The Mangekyo Sharingan moved at high speed. Pictures of the future began to appear in Fugaku's mind. Clan meeting. He told the senior leaders of the clan that Ishihara had mastered the Uchiha training method, which immediately angered everyone. The glory of Uchiha cannot be desecrated. So they decided to take action against Ishihara immediately. The scene changes. On the battlefield where the Uchiha clan and Ishihara fought. Shi Principal entered lightning flash mode. As he displayed various terrifying secret techniques, he was as unstoppable as the god of death, and the blood flowed like a river. And he could only rely on Susanoo to protect himself, and watch the elites of the clan being slaughtered. How could Ishihara be so strong? Fugaku stood up suddenly, unable to accept the result of the deduction. Those were the elites of the Uchiha clan who had opened the 3 Magatama, but they had almost no power to resist in front of Ishihara. But the future scene continued. The scene turned and came to the Uchiha clan. A large number of Konoha Anbu appeared here, raising their butcher knives towards the Uchiha clan. The Uchiha clan, which had just experienced a tragic defeat and suffered serious losses in combat power, could only become the dead souls under the knife of the Anbu. I'm afraid he was defeated too. In the end, all that was left for the Uchiha were corpses covering the ground. There was also the figure of Ishihara, who stood in front of the Uchiha corpses with a smile on his face, and picked out a few Uchiha corpses like picking goods and took them away. The third Hokage and Danzo took advantage of others' danger. Fugaku's face was ashen and his heart was filled with rage. Although he knew that these scenes were all deduced based on the intelligence he collected and his own judgment. But precisely because of this, he will believe in this result even more. No, there must be no conflict with Ishihara. Fugaku suppressed the anger in his heart and tried to calm down. He couldn't accept the outcome of Uchiha being exterminated. Start the second deduction. Images of the future reappeared in his mind. This time, the Uchiha clan did not conflict with Ishihara. But the third Hokage and Danzo brought their troops to Ishihara and wanted to recruit him, but Ishihara refused. The third Hokage and Danzo immediately attacked, trying to catch him. It's a pity that Ishihara escaped in the end. After that, Fugaku approached Ishihara and wanted to seek cooperation. In the picture, Ishihara said calmly, "Let me study your Mangekyo Sharingan, as well as future Itachi's Mangekyo, as well as all Uchiha's secret techniques and forbidden techniques. This is my condition." In reality, Fugaku's expression changed drastically. He didn't expect such a result. But he thought of the information Itachi had said before. Ishihara said before that he was optimistic that Itachi would turn on the kaleidoscope in the future, so he let him go. So one of the purposes of his coming to Konoha this time is the Mangekyo Sharingan. Fugaku understood, but he was a little hesitant in his heart. Not to mention the importance of the information about the kaleidoscope eye technique. Just the Mangekyo Sharingan was a big risk for Ishihara to research. What he was even more worried about was that Ishihara would turn on the kaleidoscope. Finally Fugaku gritted his teeth. It's a deduction anyway, so give it to him. The picture of the future continues. Fugaku agreed, but also put forward his own condition, which was to let Ishihara help the Uchiha clan at the critical moment. Ishihara agreed and started cooperation with the Uchiha clan. With his help, Itachi opened the Mangekyo Sharingan. Then the 3 CGBB joined forces and completed the bloodless revolution after losing many Uchiha elites. He, Uchiha Fugaku, became the 5th Hokage of Konoha. It actually succeeded. Fugaku suddenly became energetic and couldn't even care about the pain caused by the consumption of Mangekyo Eye's power. Although he couldn't see the details of the future, it was enough to see the results. If Ishihara knew the results of Fugaku's deduction, he would probably die laughing. Not to mention that Itachi had already activated the kaleidoscope, this important information was missing. The other party must have thought too well of him. What he wants is not just the kaleidoscope that has been born now. Everything Fugaku had feared had become a reality. Everything deduced is based on his own intelligence and judgment, and is within the scope of his cognition. The logic is self-consistent. No matter what the result is, it will affect his judgment. Now, the impact has already been made. The scary thing is that he can't even realize that this is wrong. Not to mention how wrong his deduction results were. On the contrary, I believe that this result is correct. And be prepared to take action based on this result. The result of confrontation with Ishihara is the annihilation of the clan, while the result of cooperation with Ishihara is to revive the Uchiha clan and even make him Hokage. Even if the price paid is a bit higher, Fugaku knows how to choose. His eyes sparkled. In the deduction just now, Ishihara hid after being attacked by the 3rd Hokage and Danzo. It took me a lot of time to find him, which also delayed Itachi's activation of the kaleidoscope. Otherwise, the bloodless revolution would be easier and wouldn't even require dead Uchiha. I have to go see him in advance this time. Thinking of this, Fugaku couldn't sit still and immediately got up to look for Ishihara. As soon as he walked out of the house, he saw Uchiha Tiehuo lingering at the door. This is the elite of the Uchiha clan who has opened the 3 Magatama. He is also the captain of the police force and one of his cronies. Tiehuo, why are you patrolling here at this time? Fugaku asked in surprise. Chief, I have something to tell you. Tiehuo told him what he had just seen. Oh, do you know where Ishihara is? Take me there quickly. Fugaku looked shocked and hurriedly pulled Taihuo away. Captain, is the Ishihara you are talking about the person who met Itachi? Who is he? Taihuo didn't quite understand why Fugaku was so eager. Let's talk about this later. Fugaku did not explain. He had not yet figured out how to tell his tribe about Ishihara. He knew very well that with the pride of his tribe, once he knew that an outsider had mastered the Sharingan, he would probably explode immediately. He needed to test Ishihara first. Soon, Fugaku, led by Tiehuo, found 2 other teammates who were monitoring Ishihara. I happened to see Ishihara who was getting ready to go out. You guys are following behind. Fugaku hurriedly gave instructions and hurriedly chased after him. The 3 Tiehuo looked at each other, feeling a little uneasy, and followed him. There is a small town not far from Konoha village. Apart from this, most of the area is forest or plain, with few people. This is part of Konoha's defense system. After Ishihara came to Konoha this time, he built a temporary residence, a small wooden house, in a remote forest. I have been following you for so long, it's time for you to show up. Ishihara stopped in front of the wooden house, turned around and looked into the forest, curious about who was following him. After a while of silence, a figure walked out of the forest. Ishihara smiled immediately. I didn't expect it to be you, the head of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Fugaku. It seems that I underestimated your intelligence system, Ishihara. Fugaku looked serious. It seems that Itachi has told you my information. I am curious why the head of the Uchiha clan came to me. Is it for my Sharingan? Ishihara looked at him with a half smile and asked. Fugaku looked solemn and said, I am indeed curious about your Sharingan. But this is not the most important thing. I have more important cooperation to discuss with you. But before that, maybe we need to understand each other's strength. In the future, he deduced, the 2 of them also fought. That battle was ultimately inconclusive and ended in a draw. This was also the basis for subsequent negotiations between him and Ishihara. So he knows very well that if he wants to discuss cooperation, he must first show his strength, especially his kaleidoscope. Cooperate. Ishihara was a little surprised. To be honest, he had thought about many situations before coming here, but he never thought that the Uchiha clan would come to cooperate. But after hearing what Fugaku said, Ishihara immediately smiled. He also wanted to find an opportunity to see if Fugaku had turned on the kaleidoscope and study it, but now he had it delivered to his door. But coming to provoke someone still made Ishihara a little unhappy. Isn't Clan Chief Fugaku afraid that I will kill you? Uchiha Fugaku snorted coldly when he heard this, and turned on the kaleidoscope directly, looking proud. Now do you think you can still kill me? This is the Mangekyo Sharingan. Fugaku has absolute confidence in this, he will never lose. Ishihara immediately became energetic when he saw this. It is indeed the Mangekyo Sharingan. Roll your eyes, open. Transparent world, open. Buzz. In an instant, Ishihara's vision changed. He focused his sight on Fugaku's kaleidoscope and carefully observed the details. Sure enough, the internal structure of his Mangekyo Sharingan is different from Obito's. I wonder if I can develop a new secret technique today. Ishihara grinned excitedly. You'll know if you try it. The wind stopped, and the entire forest became extremely quiet at this moment. The 2 looked at each other. Suddenly, Fugaku took action. The kaleidoscope spun at high speed. Sharingan Genjutsu. Illusion space. Buzz. 2 huge chakras collided suddenly, and then cancelled each other out. How could this guy resist the genjutsu cast by the Mangekyo Sharingan so easily? Fugaku was shocked. Although he had long known that Ishihara's illusions were very terrifying, he did not expect that the other party would be so powerful. It's too weak. Is this the eye technique of the Mangekyo Sharingan? Ishihara sighed. The disappointment in his heart was real. It seems that the kaleidoscope is not as strong as I thought, and it can't even break through my own illusion space. Don't be too proud. The move was easily blocked. Fugaku's face became a little confused, and he was filled with embarrassment and growled. Let you see the real kaleidoscope eye technique. It's finally here. Ishihara was shocked, and frantically focused his gaze on Fugaku's left eye. There, the chakra is fluctuating wildly. Pupil power is rapidly depleting. A mortal technique. Lightning flash. Boom. Chakra burst out from his body, forming a terrifying shock wave that swept out in all directions. Amaterasu. Then Fugaku let out a low roar. Ishihara suddenly felt something strange on his body, and a sense of crisis enveloped his heart. He didn't want to move sideways immediately. Buzz. Suddenly, black flames appeared where he was before, burning continuously, even the land was burned. This is Amaterasu black flame. A flash of light flashed in Ishihara's eyes, and his figure kept flickering to avoid Fugaku's attack. Buzz buzz. He easily dodged Amaterasu's black flames again and again. Chain of life. In the process of dodging, Ishihara's chakra suddenly fell on the burning black flames. Violence, destruction, raging, what a terrible feeling. This feeling is actually fire release, it's such a familiar feeling. Could it be that the black flame is just the limit of the change in properties of fire escape chakra? Just like the secret technique of hydration, it is another evolutionary direction of chakra. Feeling the result of analyzing the black flame, Ishihara was a little unbelievable. But, you analyzed the essence of Amaterasu black flame, and you created the black flame cultivation method. Black flame cultivation method. After mastering it, you can master Amaterasu black flame. The facts were before his eyes, and Ishihara had to believe the reality. Amaterasu black flame is the upper limit of fire escape chakra. The more powerful the power, the more common the principles are. Just like wood escape. But after reading it, Ishihara felt that without the Mangekyo Sharingan, it would be almost impossible for anyone in the ninja world to cultivate black flames. Because this requires too high a change in the nature and form of fire release chakra. Even he would probably have to practice continuously for a long time to reach the requirements. What is this guy doing? Fugaku could naturally see Ishihara's chakra appearing on the Amaterasu black flame in his Sharingan's vision. This gave him a bad feeling. Does he want to study Amaterasu? What a joke. Fugaku was extremely angry. The kaleidoscope eye technique that he was so proud of turned out to be a research material for others. Even though he was prepared, he felt extremely ashamed at this moment. Susanoo. Boom. The upper body of a purple skeleton more than 10 meters high rose into the sky, and then muscle fibers appeared, and a layer of chakra coat wrapped Susanoo. Susanoo's second form is completed. It held a bow and arrow in each hand and wrapped Fugaku in its body. The terrifying sense of oppression dissipated. This is Susanoo. The Uchiha trio hiding in the forest widened their eyes in shock, with disbelief on their faces. It's the captain. The captain has activated the Mangekyo Sharingan. Uchiha Tiehuo growled excitedly. This is the Mangekyo Sharingan. The symbol of invincibility. After Shisui's death, they thought that the Uchiha clan no longer had the Mangekyo Sharingan, so they did not dare to go to war with the high-level officials of Konoha. But now, the three of them were in ecstasy. The Uchiha clan has the Mangekyo Sharingan again. And even Susanoo has been turned on. The captain hides too deeply. Uchiha Inari exclaimed. So I have an impression. The black flame from before seems to be Amaterasu in the Mangekyo eye technique. Legend has it that Amaterasu can release black flames from the focus of his sight. It will never disappear until the target is burned out. Uchiha Yashira suddenly woke up and said excitedly. But Amaterasu was just dodged. Uchiha Tiehuo's expression changed, feeling a little incredible. The three people's expressions suddenly became solemn. Uchiha Yashira said confidently, the moves used by the enemy are similar to the ninjutsu of the Cloud Ninja Village. They have extreme speed, so it's not too surprising that they can dodge Amaterasu. But there's no way he can hide from Susanoo. Susanoo is absolutely invincible. Standing in Susanoo's defensive circle, Fugaku felt extremely safe. He looked proudly and said, this is the third technique that can only be activated by those who have activated the kaleidoscope in both eyes, Susanoo. As long as I stand here, no one can hurt me. Susanoo's defense is absolute. Ishihara's eyes fell on Susanoo, looking a little surprised. Byakugan's vision allowed him to see clearly that this tall giant was indeed made of chakra. But he didn't understand how this giant maintained this unique human structure and was so stable and firm. Then let me try Susanoo's defense. Ishihara's expression condensed, and like a blue lightning, he appeared on the side of Susanoo's body with a loud sound. Die! As Fugaku roared, Susanoo raised the long bow in his hand and shot an arrow at his location. Brush! Ishihara quickly avoided it, a little surprised. You are indeed very fast, but it is still clearly visible in the eyes of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Seeing his surprise, Fugaku immediately said proudly. Ishihara was stunned, he had indeed forgotten. After all, when Sasuke turned on the kaleidoscope and fought against Raikage, he could also clearly see the opponent's movements, and even his body could respond. It can only be said that after opening the Mangekyo Sharingan, not only the ability of insight and prediction will be greatly improved, but also the physical function will be improved a lot. Ishihara took a breath and said coldly, I hope you can catch my next speed. Demon Tattoo, open. Buzz. In an instant, Ishihara entered Sage mode. A large amount of natural energy swarmed into his body and quickly merged with his cells. In an instant, his cell activity increased to another level. Boom! The thickness of the thunder chakra surrounding him suddenly increased from 10 centimeters to more than 20 centimeters. The whole person exudes a violent thunder aura, just like a thunder god. I'm going to kill. Ishihara raised his head and glanced at the shocked Fugaku. Boom! There was a loud bang and the ground exploded. The figure of Ishihara has been lost in place. Not good. Fugaku was horrified, a terrifying sense of crisis enveloped his heart, and his Mangekyo Sharingan turned crazily to capture Ishihara's traces. However, even if he turned the kaleidoscope to its extreme, he could only see a blurry line. That is Ishihara's movement trajectory at extreme speed. It is also the smoke, dust and air waves left behind by the sonic boom produced by extremely fast movement. Quick, too fast. It was so fast that Fugaku was horrified. Even though the Mangekyo Sharingan barely captured Ishihara's trajectory. But the moment he saw the trajectory, Ishihara had already closed a large distance. At this speed, in such a short period of time, his body had no time to respond. He could only watch helplessly as Ishihara arrived beside him. It seems that the Mangekyo Sharingan is nothing more than that. Ishihara looked at Fugaku through Susanoo and said coldly. No matter how fast you are, Susanoo's defense is absolute and no one can break it. Fugaku growled with a fierce expression. He was completely panicked. Ishihara's strength far exceeded the results of his deduction. The huge difference between reality and deduction made him feel uneasy. Ishihara watched him calmly raise his right fist. Didn't I say, let me try Susanoo's defense. Senjutsu super strength. Ishihara punched out. Chakra burst. Natural energy burst. Terrifying power gathered in his fist, as if it could tear the space apart. Boom! A huge fist made of chakra fell hard on Susanoo as Ishihara swung his fist. Crack, crack, cracks appeared on Susanoo. In Fugaku's unbelievable eyes, the fierce power broke Susanoo's defense. A beam of lightning penetrated Susanoo's body. Straight into the sky. How is it possible? Susanoo's defense was broken. Fugaku was going crazy. He stared at Ishihara with his eyes fixed, still unable to believe it. This is the power of absolute defense, how could it be broken? But, crack, crack, the violent power spread on Susanoo's body, and more cracks appeared. With a bang, the whole Susanoo was shattered. Completely dissipated. Fugaku stared at Ishihara in a daze, his mind was blank, and he didn't know how to react. It seems that Susanoo's defense is just like this. Ishihara said lightly, but he was somewhat shocked. You have to know that this was a punch he threw at top speed with his strange strength. He actually failed to directly smash Susanoo. It is hard to imagine how terrifying the defense would be if it was a complete Susanoo. Don't underestimate Uchiha. Fugaku roared unwillingly and condensed Susanoo again. This time, Susanoo had a purple pot-shaped utensil in his hand. Whoosh! Black flames emerged from it and fell towards Ishihara. A layer of black flame defense circle formed around Susanoo. How can you get close to me with these black flames? Fugaku sneered in his heart and raised his bow and arrow to prepare for attack. But Ishihara slammed his hands on the ground. Earth escape earth flow cut. Boom! The earth shook, cracked, and turned over. The black flame defense circle was easily torn apart, and a passage composed of hideous gullies appeared around Susanoo. This time, Ishihara moved as fast as lightning and came to a passage behind Susanoo. He passed through the passage and came to the back of Susanoo in an instant. He put his hand on it and felt it carefully. This thing is a bit weird. It would be difficult to develop it without the Mangekyo Sharingan. Ishihara shook his head quickly. With his current knowledge, he had a basic judgment after a slight perception. So he gave up for the time being and planned to study it after opening the Mangekyo. Boom! Susanoo turned around and punched, and Ishihara retreated violently to distance himself. Fugaku looked at him angrily. Don't run if you have the guts. Haha, I give you face. Ishihara's expression turned cold when he heard this, and he rushed out with a grim smile and punched out. Susanoo's huge fist collided with Ishihara's fist, and the terrifying force collided, causing a moment of stagnation. Boom! In Fugaku's horrified eyes, Susanoo's arm was broken. Suddenly, his pupils shrank suddenly, and he looked at Ishihara who was punching again in front of him in horror. Not good, but it was too late. Ishihara stared at him with cold eyes and punched him. Bang! Susanoo was broken again. This time, Ishihara did not give Fugaku any chance. He came to Fugaku in an instant and punched him hard in the stomach. Wow! Fugaku's whole body arched, his abdomen like a cooked red shrimp, his eyes bulged, and he vomited blood. Plop! Ishihara threw him to the ground casually and looked down at him indifferently. I'm curious, what makes you think your strength can compare with mine? Mangekyo Sharingan. Fugaku fell to the ground in pain. It was not just Ishihara's fist, but also the side effects of the Mangekyo Sharingan. He was so painful that he could hardly stand up. His eyes had returned to their normal black color, and the whites of his eyes were full of bloodshot. His hands were tightly grasping the ground, and his whole body was shaking. Why can't even the Mangekyo Sharingan defeat you? Ishihara laughed when he heard that. It's not that the Mangekyo Sharingan can't defeat me, it's that you're too weak. After all, the Mangekyo Sharingan is just a tool, and the strength of the tool depends on the ability of the user. I'm too weak. No, it's not that I'm too weak, it's that you're too strong, you monster. Fugaku laughed at himself, then shook his head firmly, looking at Ishihara and gritted his teeth. He is very confident in his own strength. Maybe he is not the strongest person in the ninja world, but he can definitely be considered a strong man. But Ishihara is too strong, and he doesn't look like a ninja of the same level as him. No need to say more nonsense, let me study your Mangekyo Sharingan next. Ishihara stared at him coldly and said in a deep voice. Although some information about the Mangekyo was obtained in the battle just now, it was far from enough. He needs a more detailed analysis. Fugaku's face turned pale with fear when he heard this. What do you want to do? Ishihara said calmly, didn't I tell you to study your kaleidoscope? Fugaku looked a little struggling. Before coming, he had indeed made preparations to let Ishihara study his kaleidoscope. But not now, but after the cooperation is completed. And can he still make conditions in this situation? More importantly, although the results of the deduction showed that Ishihara's research did not harm his kaleidoscope, how could he dare to believe in that pitfall eye technique now? Why the hell did I come here on my own? Looking at Ishihara's somewhat burning eyes, Fugaku wanted to cry but had no tears. This time he really lost both his wife and his army. Seeing that he was still hesitating, Ishihara sneered. What, do you still want to resist? It doesn't matter, I can still study you after killing you. Looking at the cold murderous intent emanating from Ishihara, Fugaku trembled all over. Wait a minute. I agree. Fugaku's face flushed red, and he lowered his head in shame, trembling all over. He is the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, the first wealthy family in the ninja world, and he has to become someone else's experimental material. It's a shame, a great shame. What's more shameful is that he came here on his own. Fugaku was so ashamed that he wanted to commit suicide. No, I can't die. I have to use this information to rededuce Ishihara's future. I have to lead the Uchiha clan through this difficult time. And even if I die, he can still study my Mangekyo. Ishihara didn't care about Fugaku's thoughts. He took Fugaku to the cabin next door and began to prepare. He had been looking forward to the experiment of the Mangekyo Sharingan for a long time. Soon, the prepared Ishihara came behind Fugaku and said coldly, "Open the Mangekyo Sharingan now, and don't talk." At the same time, he also opened the Byakugan and the transparent world. Fugaku took a deep breath. Since he couldn't resist, he could only do it. Mangekyo Sharingan. Buzz. The pupil gradually turned into 3 Magatama, and then the Magatama rotated and gradually changed into a trident pattern. During the whole process, the room was extremely quiet. Ishihara stared at the changes in Fugaku's eyes with full concentration, and suddenly exclaimed in surprise. "Huh." Fugaku's heart skipped a beat and he became nervous. "Strange, your brain structure is a little different from Itachi's. Is this the source of the Sharingan mutation? We need to find a few more Uchiha people to observe." Without waiting for Fugaku to speak, Ishihara suddenly disappeared from the spot. But he didn't wait long. Ishihara came back, and this time he was holding 3 people in his hands. Tetsuka, Anahime, Yashura. Fugaku was shocked when he saw the 3 people, and hurriedly said, "They are all members of our clan, please don't hurt them." "Shut up." Ishihara waved his hand impatiently. After confirming the identities of the 3 people, he began to observe the brain structure of the 3 people, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Sure enough, this area of the brain mutated after opening the Mangekyo. With the vision of the Byakugan, he easily found the difference between Fugaku and the other 3 people's brain structure. That is an area in the brain. Every time they use the Sharingan, this area will produce special chakra and enter the Sharingan. The size of the organs of the 2 is somewhat different, and the nature of the chakra produced is also somewhat different. After thinking for a moment, Ishihara asked Fugaku and the other 3 people controlled by the illusion to open and close the Sharingan several times. Soon he made more discoveries. Interesting, if my guess is correct. For the Sharingan to evolve into the Mangekyo, it needs extremely terrifying emotional stimulation, which is what Senju Tobarama called rampage. Emotions are related to Yin-Tun chakra. When emotions run rampant, Yin-Tun chakra will also undergo some changes. This changed Yin-Tun chakra stimulates the organ to mutate again, and this mutation should be directional. And the chakra extracted from the mutated organ cells has also become different from other chakras. Is this the so-called Mangekyo pupil power? You studied the body structure of the Uchiha clan and speculated on the evolutionary trajectory of the Mangekyo Sharingan. You developed the Mangekyo Sharingan training method. Mangekyo Sharingan training. After mastering it, you can open the Mangekyo Sharingan. After digesting the information in his mind, Ishihara narrowed his eyes. His guess was correct. The key to the evolution of the 3 Magatama Sharingan to the Mangekyo Sharingan is that the Yin-Tun chakra that changes after the emotional rampage stimulates the mutated organs to mutate in a directional manner. The Mangekyo training method is to stimulate the Yin-Tun chakra to change through continuous accumulation, so that special organs can mutate. That is, to simulate the process of emotional rampage, so as to open the Mangekyo Sharingan. Quantitative change leads to qualitative change. This thought flashed through Ishihara's mind, and then he suddenly had an idea. Can I omit the first process and directly stimulate the organs to mutate in a directional manner? Then he shook his head. In this case, it would not be training but biological transformation. And it is too difficult to mutate in a directional manner, and he does not have such knowledge reserves for the time being. But in this case, this secret technique cannot meet my requirements. Ishihara's eyebrows were tightened. His goal is to let the Uchiha clan give birth to a few more Mangekyo Sharingans in a short period of time. But the Mangekyo training method requires a lot of time to practice, up to 10 or even decades. It obviously does not meet his requirements. We must shorten the time it takes to open the kaleidoscope. Ishihara fell into deep thought again. Si Fei, Lu, Ba Wu Ling Ju Lu Wu Lin Yi. There are 2 parts in the secret technique that can shorten time. One is the amount of Yin-Dun chakra, and the other is the growth of special organs. My current research on Yin-Dun is too shallow. I am afraid that I can't make a breakthrough in Yin-Dun in a short time. Then start with promoting the growth of special organs. After having a direction, Ishihara's thoughts became clear in an instant, and he had a general framework. The large amount of medical ninjutsu knowledge he had mastered before became extremely active. Orochimaru did a lot of things like stimulating cell growth when conducting taboo experiments, so Ishihara was not lacking in this knowledge. The framework in his mind gradually became full with the addition of these knowledge. Finally, it became complete. Ishihara let out a long breath and a smile appeared on his face. You improved the Mangekyo training method based on medical knowledge and created the secret technique Mangekyo Training Method 2.0. Mangekyo Training Method 2.0. After mastering it, you can open the Mangekyo Sharingan, but the side effects are great and will greatly reduce your lifespan. Although the side effects are great, Ishihara is extremely satisfied. After all, he is not the one who wants to use this secret technique, and it is not his lifespan that is being shortened. As long as the time to activate the Mangekyo Sharingan can be greatly reduced, it will be enough. Anyway, he doesn't know how to use these two versions of the training methods, and he still needs to continue to improve them. Ahem. At this time, a cough suddenly sounded. Ishihara looked down and saw that the Uchiha trio he had captured had woken up. He waved his hands at the three of them and Fugaku, who was lying on the operating table. Okay, the research on you is over, you can go. Is this the end? Don't you need to dig out your eyes? This is too hasty. Fugaku was a little stunned, feeling that everything was different from what he imagined, and couldn't help but ask. Have you figured out anything? Ishihara looked at him with a half-smile. If I told you that I have developed the secret technique to open the Mangekyo Sharingan, would you believe it? How is it possible? Fugaku's words were just about to blurt out. But the information Itachi had said suddenly rang out to him. It only took Ishihara a very short time to activate the Sharingan. Could it be that this is true? Fugaku suddenly came back to his senses and asked in a trembling voice. Wait a minute, does the secret skill you mentioned can be practiced by anyone? Ishihara smiled and nodded. Having developed the kaleidoscope practice so quickly, he was in a good mood and didn't mind talking more. But the most suitable person is the person among you Uchiha clan who has activated the three Magatama, but the side effects are a bit serious. Fugaku's eyes suddenly became extremely hot. He believed that Ishihara would not lie to him, because there was no need. If the Uchiha clan could obtain such a training method, how terrifying the Uchiha clan would become. 2 pairs, 3 pairs, or even more Mangekyo Sharingan. Will the Uchiha clan's difficult situation in Konoha still be a problem by then? Fart. As for the side effects, you can activate the Mangekyo Sharingan, so who cares? Fugaku's whole body trembled with excitement. He opened his mouth and wanted to ask, but he didn't know how to ask. He doesn't seem to be in any position to negotiate. Ishihara glanced at him, said nothing, turned and walked out of the room. Although he really wanted a few pairs of Mangekyo Sharingan, the requester was not himself, but the Uchiha clan who were now eager to change the disadvantageous situation in Konoha. If you want him to speak first, no way. Even if Fugaku guessed his purpose, he wouldn't be able to survive him. After Ishihara left, the Uchiha trio who had remained silent finally dared to speak. Captain, who is Ishihara and his strength? Uchiha Iron Fire wanted to speak but stopped. Just now, the three of them joined forces and failed to survive even a single move in front of Ishihara. As soon as they met, they were hit by an illusion and fell down. This strength shocked the three of them. Not to mention that they saw with their own eyes that Fugaku, who turned on the kaleidoscope, was defeated at the hands of the opponent. Facing such a strong man, they naturally know how to show surrender and obedience. Fugaku sighed after hearing this, and then told the information he knew about Ishihara. He's only 6. Uchiha Iron Fire and the other 3 were stunned and speechless in shock. The room fell silent. After a long time, Uchiha Tiehuo asked, "Why did you come to him, clan leader?" Fugaku frowned slightly when he heard this. After hesitating for a moment, he still said with a heavy face, "Because one of my kaleidoscope skills is to deduce the future trend based on current intelligence. After deduction, I found that the Uchiha clan may be in danger of annihilation." What? The expressions of the Uchiha trio suddenly changed. Fugaku said nothing with a sullen face. What he saw in those 2 deductions was not only the results, but also the attitude of Konoha senior officials such as the 3rd Hokage and Danzo towards Uchiha. It's definitely not just suppression, but to kill them all. Thinking of this, Fugaku couldn't help but feel murderous intent in his heart. He will never let the genocide that appeared in the deduction become a reality. Fugaku clenched his hands into fists, looked at the three of them and said in a deep voice. But if we can reach cooperation with Ishihara, not only can we avoid the crisis of genocide, but we can even make the Uchiha clan stand at the top of the ninja world again. Although the reality is different from the results he deduced. But instead of being discouraged, Fugaku became even more excited and strengthened his idea of cooperating with Ishihara. Because Ishihara is stronger than he expected. The ability to develop secret techniques is far more terrifying than he imagined. As long as cooperation is reached, the future of the Uchiha clan may be even more powerful than what he deduced. You should have heard just now that he developed a secret technique that allows people to open the Mangekyo Sharingan. Believe me, this is true. So we must reach cooperation with Ishihara. The Uchiha trio looked at each other in shock upon hearing this. Of course they also heard the conversation just now, and they were lying if they said they were not excited or wanted. But thinking of Ishihara's strength, the three of them immediately calmed down. But how can we achieve cooperation with him? Fugaku's expression stiffened when he heard this, and he sighed. In my deduction, I need to give him my own Mangekyo Eye technique and the Mangekyo Eye technique activated by Itachi in the future for him to study. And he must also be given the secrets and forbidden techniques of the Uchiha clan. As soon as the words fell, the Uchiha trio's face immediately changed, and they said angrily. No, they are the proud Uchiha clan. They are actually reduced to the point of being actively turned into experimental materials for research. This is too ridiculous. Their pride and self-esteem are simply unacceptable. Fugaku looked at the angry three people and suddenly became angry, roaring. Do you think I am willing? I am the head of the Uchiha clan, the first wealthy family in the ninja world, and one of the most powerful people in the ninja world. Even the third generation of Hokage, I dare to confront him head-on. If there is any possibility, do you think I am willing to be someone else's research material? This is all for the family. The trio was silent when they heard it. Such shame is difficult for them to accept. But between genocide and losing self-esteem to protect the family, they are also willing to sacrifice for the family. The three of them looked at each other, and their eyes became determined. Clan leader, talk to him. Fugaku felt relieved when he saw this. Finally, he gained the understanding of his tribe. This made him feel a lot more relaxed when he was feeling stressed and humiliated. Okay, I'll go talk to him. Fugaku nodded and walked outside the room. Looking at Ishihara who was resting under the shade of a tree, he felt extremely complicated, sighed and walked forward. I want to cooperate with you. Ishihara raised his eyebrows and asked with interest, how do you say it? Fugaku took a deep breath and looked serious. The next conversation would be related to the life and death of the Uchiha clan, so he had to be cautious. If I guess correctly, your goal should be the Mangekyo Sharingan of our Uchiha clan, or the Mangekyo Eye technique, right? After finishing speaking, Fugaku looked at him nervously. This is one of my goals. Ishihara smiled and nodded without denying it. Fugaku looked stunned. He didn't understand what his other purpose was for the time being, but he felt relieved in his heart. As long as you still have chips, you can talk. Fugaku swallowed and said nervously. I can give you all the secret techniques and forbidden techniques of the Uchiha clan. But you must also help my people open the Mangekyo Sharingan. After opening their eyes, their Mangekyo can be studied by you. Ishihara glanced at him in surprise. He didn't expect Fugaku to be so generous. He didn't even expect that he could let go of his Uchiha pride. However, this does facilitate the advancement of his plan. Ishihara simply agreed and said with a smile. To show my sincerity, today I can help one of your three subordinates open the Mangekyo Sharingan. He didn't care about Fugaku's plan, his secret skills were not so easy to obtain. Good. Fugaku looked shocked. He didn't expect Ishihara to agree so simply. He immediately excitedly called the three people in the room out. After a quarrel, Uchiha Tiehuo finally stood up and became the guinea pig. Seeing his solemn expression, Ishihara couldn't help but shook his head. Let me explain to you first. The side effect of turning on the kaleidoscope is to greatly reduce your lifespan. Even if the secret technique fails, these lifespans will still be lost, and you may die. Are you sure you want to continue? Reduce lifespan. The expressions of Fugaku and others changed greatly. They didn't expect the side effects to be so serious. Uchiha Tiehuo trembled even more, and his face turned a little pale, but he still said firmly, "Please continue. How can you turn on the kaleidoscope without paying any price?" "I'm ready." "Good." Ishihara nodded. "Come and sit cross-legged in front of me." Uchiha Tiehuo sat down, looking a little nervous. Ishihara cast a barrier to cover the two of them, and the sound could not be transmitted. Then he said, "Next, I will explain the secret technique to you. Listen carefully and study carefully. The secret technique is not difficult to master, it can even be said to be a bit simple and crude." With Ishihara's explanation, Uchiha Tiehuo gradually mastered the secret technique. But he only knew how to do it, but he didn't understand the principle at all, and it was all hidden by Ishihara. "You are the first to try this secret technique, so I will help you." Uchiha Tiehuo nodded and began to operate the secret technique with a solemn expression. Buzz. Ishihara opened the illusion space and instantly enveloped the opponent. Uchiha Tiehuo suddenly trembled when he noticed this. "Don't move, this is also part of the secret technique." Ishihara's voice made him suppress his body's counterattack instinct, but he still felt a little uneasy. But he didn't notice that a light flashed in Ishihara's eyes behind him. "You want to copy all the jutsu, keep this in mind." The illusion space was activated, and he planted a little seed in Uchiha Tiehuo's heart. And this is Ishihara's second purpose. He wants to develop his secret technique of Sharingan to the extreme, and also develop the 3 basic abilities of Sharingan to the extreme. But he has never had a clue about the ability to copy the Sharingan. So I came up with this method of using kaleidoscope pupil technique to deduce. Now is his first attempt. As for whether he could succeed, he was not sure. After making all preparations, Ishihara whispered, "Start operating the secret technique." Yes, Uchiha Iron Fire hurriedly began to operate the secret technique. Suddenly a bone-eroding pain swept through his body, causing his expression to change drastically. Ishihara opened his Byakugan to observe his situation, and hurriedly reminded, "This is the secret technique draining your life force, hold on." He could see that with the massive consumption of chakra, the painful emotions quickly condensed together, resulting in a slight change in the yin escape chakra. Originally, this weak change was not enough to cause secondary mutation of the organ. But under these burning life forces, this special organ seems to have become particularly sensitive. This subtle change immediately triggers changes in special organs. Seeing this scene, Ishihara suddenly became energetic. "The changes have already begun, hold on." "Good." Uchiha Tiehuo's teeth were almost broken. He felt as if there were countless ants gnawing on his body, which was extremely painful and uncomfortable. Even his appearance began to look older and his hair turned gray. Outside the boundary, when Fugaku and others saw this scene, they gritted their teeth in pain. "Tiehuo, you must hold on." The whole forest was silent. Only the hoarse roar of Uchiha Iron Fire was heard inside the barrier. Ishihara watched silently, not caring about Uchiha Tiehuo's life or death. He only cared about whether this experiment could be successful. Quick, quick, quick. Seeing the mutated organs becoming more and more active, Ishihara became more and more focused. I don't know how much time has passed, but Uchiha Tiehuo has become like a 60-year-old man. Just then, buzz. The tipping point has arrived. Special organs have mutated. A special chakra was born and instantly poured into Uchiha Tiehuo's eyes. The 3 Magatama Sharingan emerged automatically, and then its structure changed under the influence of this special chakra. A new pattern is formed. Mangekyo Sharingan. The 3 of Fugaku looked at the kaleidoscope in Uchiha Tiehuo's eyes in shock, and were completely stunned. Even among the Uchiha clan, the Mangekyo Sharingan is an extremely rare ability. But now someone has mastered the method of spawning a kaleidoscope. And right in front of them. It's incredible. Have I activated the Mangekyo Sharingan? Uchiha Tiehuo felt the terrifying power in his eyes and his whole body trembled with excitement. A dream that was once out of reach has come true so easily. It was almost like a dream. That's right. What is your pupil technique? Ishihara was also very happy. He didn't expect that the first experiment was successful, and he couldn't help asking expectantly. If the opponent's pupil technique is a copy ability, that would be great. But Uchiha Tiehuo did not answer immediately, but remained silent and his eyes began to flicker. He has activated the Mangekyo Sharingan. Become a real strong man. Do we still want to be at the mercy of Ishihara? Uchiha Tiehuo felt a little unwilling. What's more, he already knows what his kaleidoscope eye technique is. The feeling given to him was even stronger than the strength Ishihara had just shown. His powerful strength makes him unwilling to be inferior to others. Ishihara immediately smiled when he saw this. It seems that this Uchiha is a little thoughtful. He glanced at Fugaku and the others outside the barrier with a half smile, and said calmly. It seems that you are still unwilling. In that case, I will give you a chance. Use your pupil technique to your heart's content. As long as you can persist under my hand for 1 minute, then I will give the Mangekyo training hair to the Uchiha clan for free. If you don't accept it, then defeat it completely. If Ishihara dared them to turn on the kaleidoscope, they would naturally be ready. Moreover, letting the other party use the pupil technique will make it easier for him to conduct research. Hold on for 1 minute. Stop looking down on me. Tiehuo was furious when he heard this. Having just turned on kaleidoscope, he was so confident that he didn't think he would lose at all. The words fell. His Mangekyo Sharingan began to spin at high speed. Buzz. This time, powerful thunder chakra erupted from his body, covering his entire body. The terrifying thunder chakra instantly shattered the soundproof barrier. Ishihara was stunned for a moment, a little surprised. Thunder chakra mode or thunder shunshen. The opponent's current appearance is very similar to the form when he used thunder shunshen, but it is more like the thunder release chakra mode. Then he sighed in disappointment. There is no doubt that the experiment failed. The Sharingan is called the Eye of Spiritual Reflection. When it evolves into a kaleidoscope, it will generate related eye skills based on the thoughts in the heart. Ishihara had always doubted this statement before. That's why I tried to plant a seed in his heart for testing when Iron Fire turned on the kaleidoscope. Now it seems that this statement may be true. But unfortunately, the influence of his own illusions had no effect. I'm afraid he just saw the battle between me and Fugaku, and was too deeply impressed by the power of Lei Shunshin. Although the experiment failed, Ishihara quickly cheered up. At least this experiment proved that my idea was feasible. Next time you do the experiment, strengthen your psychic suggestion. Ha ha ha. At this time, Taihuo felt the terrifying power in his body and laughed excitedly. The terrifying explosive power that filled his entire body, as well as the physical activity that far exceeded his previous level, shocked him beyond measure. Too strong. Compared with my current self, I was nothing but scum. No wonder Ishihara can break Susanoo's defense. How could he lose with such power? Taihuo was full of confidence. KK looked at Shiyuan eagerly, with an arrogant expression. He wants to blow up Ishihara. The 3 Fugaku people were shocked by the sudden change. Does he think he can defeat Ishihara by turning on the kaleidoscope? Fugaku's heart sank as he looked at the arrogant Taihuo. But he didn't dare to act rashly, he could only watch. Ishihara looked at Taihuo calmly, then activated the lightning flash mode and demon tattoo, and waved to him. Bring it on. You are so underestimating. Taihuo's face darkened, and his heart was filled with anger. In Thunder Chakra mode, his speed becomes extremely fast. The figure appeared in front of Ishihara in the blink of an eye, and launched an attack with his fist. Ishihara gently raised his hand to block it in front of him. Bang! The fists and palms collided, and a layer of air exploded. Taihuo was a little shocked, as if he didn't expect that his attack would be blocked, and his face looked a little ugly. Ishihara looked at him coldly. What are you shocked about? Your pupil technique is just imitating my secret technique. You don't think you can be faster and stronger than me, do you? Imitation. My pupil technique is not imitating you. Tiehuo stared at him angrily with flaming eyes. He quickly distanced himself. Ishihara did not stop him, but looked at him indifferently. Continue. The contemptuous look made Tiehuo extremely angry. Asshole, don't look down on me. With a roar in his heart, Tiehuo began to attack Ishihara frantically from all directions with his extreme speed. But no matter how fast he was, no matter how tricky the angle of attack was, all the attacks were easily blocked by Ishihara. Even Ishihara's footsteps did not move from beginning to end. Bang! Another collision. This time Ishihara punched Tiehuo away, and stepped forward and said coldly. If your pupil technique is just like this, then there is no need to continue. Tiehuo got up from the ground, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and said angrily. I didn't want to use this trick, since you were looking for death, don't blame me. Condense for me. This time. With Tiehuo's roar, a large amount of lightning chakra began to condense towards his palm, and unexpectedly condensed into a spear very quickly. He held the long-haired thunderbolt in his hand, with an arrogant look, looking down on Ishihara. Thunder Spear. This is a move condensed from a large amount of thunder chakra, with a power comparable to the tailed beast ball and a speed comparable to lightning. No one can dodge this move. Ishihara finally felt a little interested. He was very sure that Tiehuo's thunder chakra form change could never reach this level. Interesting, could it be that your pupil technique can control the form change of thunder chakra? Tiehuo said proudly. Yes, my pupil technique is the thunder god, which can control the form change of thunder chakra and enhance the power of the nature change of thunder chakra. The voice fell. A large amount of thunder chakra burst out from his body again, and then condensed into two wolves and a thunderbird with a wingspan of more than 2 meters around him. Interesting. Ishihara's eyes lit up when he saw this. His thunder chakra form change is far from this level. Or no one in the ninja world can make thunder chakra make such a complex form change. This pupil technique is useful to me. Tiehuo smiled proudly and said confidently. Give up, Ishihara, you can't win this move. Ishihara shook his head with a smile, then look at my move. This time, even more terrifying lightning chakra condensed from his body to his hands. Tiehuo sneered at this. Don't dream, the thunder spear has extremely high requirements for the form change of lightning chakra, even you can't. Gone. What the hell is this? His voice stopped abruptly, and he looked at the opposite side with his eyes wide open, his voice trembling. I saw that a thunder spear also appeared in Ishihara's hand. Bigger than his. Thicker. The breath is more violent. More terrifying. Tiehuo felt the amount of chakra contained in it and trembled all over, his eyes almost popped out. The amount of chakra in here is more than my total amount. If I get hit by this move. No, I must not fight head-on. Uchiha Tiehuo was startled, and his heart was chilled when he saw the thunder spear. Come, let me feel the power of your thunder release. Ishihara waved the thunder spear in his hand with interest. This secret technique was used for the first time since it was developed, and he also wanted to try its power. Looking at Ishihara's playful eyes, Tiehuo was afraid, but the pride in his heart would not allow him to admit defeat. Okay, I want to see whose thunder release is stronger. Kill. Tiehuo gritted his teeth, held the thunder spear tightly in his hand, and suddenly rushed in front of Ishihara, staring at him intently. The thunder spear stabbed fiercely. At the same time, the two thunder wolves and the thunderbird also attacked like lightning. Ishihara looked calm, stretched out his left hand, and quickly and accurately pressed the tip of the thunder spear. This time, the thunder spear and Ishihara's palm wrapped in thunder release collided with each other, emitting a dazzling white light. The sound of the surging electric current continued. It was blocked. Tiehuo was horrified at this scene. His strongest attack was actually blocked. And it was blocked with one hand. It was unbelievable. Ishihara stared at him calmly, and then clenched his left hand fiercely. Bang! The thunder spear exploded, turning into countless thunder release chakras that splashed in all directions. Bang bang bang! The thunder release chakra that landed instantly blew huge black pits on the ground. The entire battlefield seemed to have turned into a thunder-restricted area, and countless thunders fell instantly. Buzz. Uchiha Tiehuo's mind was blank, and he felt like he was going crazy. The thunder spear, which was comparable to the tailed beast ball, was crushed by bare hands. How the hell is this possible? He was directly shocked. At this time, the attack of Thunder Wolf and Thunderbird finally arrived. Ishihara didn't even look at it, holding the thunder spear in his right hand and swung it quickly, instantly cutting the three thunder beasts apart, turning into lightning and dissipating. It seems that your pupil technique is just like this. Ishihara stared at Uchiha Tiehuo jokingly. How can your lightning release be so strong? Tiehuo finally came back to his senses, staring at him blankly and asked. Is this difficult? Ishihara asked back. His lightning body was indeed much stronger than before. That was because he had completed the nature and form changes of his lightning chakra, reaching the level of fusion bloodline limit. In short, it was the level of Kage. And the Mangekyo Sharingan is nothing more than a Kage-level pupil technique. Isn't it natural that it is inferior to his lightning release? After all, he has been practicing this for 6 days. Okay, I have experienced the power of your lightning release, and now you can also experience mine. Ishihara's expression turned cold, and he raised the thunder spear in his right hand. What do you want to do? Tetsuho's face changed drastically. He looked at him in horror, and then turned and ran. Beside, Fugaku and the other two were still immersed in the fast battle just now. Unexpectedly, the situation would take a sharp turn for the worse, and Fugaku shouted anxiously, "Run this way." Then, he immediately used Susanoo to cover Tiehuo and others. Can you run away? A cold light flashed in Ishihara's eyes, and then he threw the thunder spear fiercely. Boom! There was a loud bang. The thunder spear collided with the Susanoo that had just appeared. The thunder spear exploded instantly, and the terrifying destructive force instantly tore apart Susanoo's body. The terrifying explosion and shock waves swept out, tearing the forest on the battlefield into ruins, and raising countless branches and debris. When the smoke and dust cleared, Ishihara also saw the situation of Fugaku and others clearly, and was a little surprised. In front of him, Susanoo was already in tatters, and Fugaku was also gasping for breath. And Uchiha Tiehuo was standing in front of everyone, and the lightning chakra wrapped around his body had disappeared for the most part, holding a flashing thunder hair in his hand. Just now, he was standing in front of everyone, trying his best to block this attack. He looked at Ishihara with lingering fear, and his heart was shocked. Too scary, he can still hurt me after breaking through Susanoo's defense. This guy's attack is definitely not as simple as thunder release. But even though he was injured, he still smiled and shouted. 1 minute is almost up, Ishihara, you are going to lose. 1 second is enough to beat you. Ishihara sneered. Boom! A terrifying aura burst out from him. A large amount of chakra quickly condensed into 2 thunder spears in his hands. It seems bigger, thicker and more terrifying than before. Gone. Tiehuo's smile froze and his face turned pale. Seeing that Ishihara was about to throw it out, he hurriedly shouted in a trembling voice, "Wait a minute, I give up." Give up, Ishihara said coldly. I have the final say on when the battle ends, and now continue. Tiehuo's face changed drastically. Fugaku's heart sank even more. He knew that Ishihara was irritated, and not only Tiehuo, but all of them were probably in danger. Tiehuo also realized this. He hurriedly looked back at Fugaku and the other two, then looked at Ishihara with a cold expression, and laughed miserably. He understood Fugaku's choice. Sometimes, in order to protect something, the only chip that can be sacrificed is oneself. There is no other choice. If he dared to dodge, Fugaku and others would be dead. If he stayed where he was to defend, Fugaku and others would probably die. But if, Tiehuo took a deep breath, and a look of determination flashed in his eyes. At the moment when Ishihara swung, in the shocked eyes of Fugaku and others, he suddenly knelt on the ground with his knees. This is not over yet. He raised his arms and put his hands in front of his eyes. Hiss! A chill hit the back of Fugaku's head, and he roared in disbelief. Diaresis, Tiehuo, what are you doing? Stop! Tiehuo paused, and then his trembling hand suddenly exerted force. Puff! Puff! 2 bright red blood flowers bloomed in the air. 2 Mangekyo Sharingan were raised high by 2 hands. Tiehuo bowed forward and prostrated himself. Lord Ishihara, please forgive my ignorance. Facing the ground, Tiehuo's face was miserable. If he could protect his companion's life by just throwing away his dignity, he would be willing to sacrifice himself. Fugaku was shaking all over when he saw this scene. Inahori and Yashira also looked at this scene in disbelief, and they wanted to rush up immediately. But they knew they couldn't do that, otherwise the price paid by their good brothers would be in vain. Strength. I want strength, Fugaku roared in his heart. Except for the day when he opened the Mangekyo, he had never been so eager for strength as now. This pair of Mangekyo Sharingan is my apology. Please accept my apology. Tiehuo knelt on the ground and shouted with a trembling voice. Ishihara was a little surprised. To be honest, he had seen quite a few people in the ninja world, but there were very few people who sacrificed themselves for their companions. Looking at Fugaku, who was full of frustration, anger and unwillingness behind him, Ishihara said coldly, "This is the last time. If there are Uchiha people who dare to resist next time, I will not hold back." He still needs the Uchiha clan to continue to develop the Mangekyo Sharingan. He needs more Mangekyos to study and develop a secret technique about the copying characteristics of the Sharingan. Hearing this, Tiehuo heaved a sigh of relief and fell to the ground. Without his Mangekyo Sharingan, his lightning chakra mode also dissipated, and he looked like an old man in his twilight years, somewhat miserable. But Ishihara had no sympathy at all. Since he dared to provoke him, he had to pay the price. Fugaku and the others also heaved a sigh of relief when they heard this, and hurried forward to help Tiehuo up and whispered comfort. Ishihara looked at them and said coldly, "I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more."